Chapter 320, Great Nether Saint King Divine Exotic City appeared, and the entire dim world was illuminated by dazzling golden light. Among it, Leah stared dumbfoundedly at his surroundings. He could feel that the power of Divine Exotic City was stronger than when he had used it, and it was incomparable. This meant that the voice from earlier was telling the truth. Thinking about it, he had never truly mastered the power of Divine Exotic City. It was always commanded by Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit. Above the clouds, the master of Divine Exotic Realm looked at the ever-expanding Divine Exotic City, his eyes flickering, unsure of his thoughts. Zhang Buku, however, felt a surge of relief. Should Sword Venerable Fudao truly arrive, then Li Yo would be saved. In his heart, Sword Venerable Fudao was an invincible existence, a belief shared by all creatures from the Taizong continent. A figure materialized next to Li Ye. He glanced over, his pupils suddenly dilating. It was that familiar demonic shadow. The dark purple demonic chi did not seem evil in his eyes but rather appeared endearing. Guwen tilted his head, glancing towards Li Ye. Li Ye quickly raised his hand in salute and said, "Primordial ancestor," words jammed in his throat, unable to be spoken. Boom, rolling thunderclouds quickly covered the blood-red heavens, countless thunderbolts twirling like dragons and snakes, immensely spectacular, plunging the land into oppression. The sea of clouds formed a giant face, occupying most of the sky, making everything between heaven and earth seem insignificant. Zhang Buku looked up at this giant face, speechless with shock, feeling an extremely terrifying pressure that he had never experienced before. Even the master of Divine Exotic Realm looked solemn. The strength of the master of Divine Exotic Realm was comparable to that of a carefree primordial immortal, yet he did not possess the comfort of a carefree primordial immortal. This giant face was truly the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma, an existence surpassing the carefree primordial immortal. The master of Divine Exotic Realm couldn't help but turn his gaze towards Guwen inside Divine Exotic City, thinking expectantly, "Sword Venerable Fudao, how will you face this?" Even the powerful Great Cold Demon sect that besieged the continent in the past couldn't achieve such a presence. "Sword Venerable Fudao, why have you not accepted the rewards from the Holy Court?" An aged voice sounded again, stern in tone. Guwen slightly lifted his head, his voice reverberating across the heaven and earth. "Why must I accept? Am I considered a demon if I do not join the Holy Court?" If the Holy Court truly thought this way, Guwen couldn't help but be more wary of the Chi Fortune. Is Chi Fortune not a form of bondage? None of such, but refusing to join the Holy Court surely has some dubious reason. "Sword Venerable Fudao, why do you refuse to show yourself? What exactly are you apprehensive about?" The aged voice boomed like thunder, echoing unceasingly. Guwen, hearing this, lost all interest in conversing. 3 breaths time, if you don't leave, don't blame me for lacking respect for the Holy Court. Guwen's voice was chilling, putting the entire heaven and earth on edge for a killing spree. The giant face above clearly changed, but it did not respond. 3 breaths time seemed so prolonged at this moment. Zhang Buku and Li Ye dared not even breathe, and the master of Divine Exotic Realm likewise awaited the decision of that mysterious existence. Such a formidable being, and even Sword Venerable Fudao could disregard it. The master of Divine Exotic Realm was profoundly moved, believing his choice was right. He could easily kill Li Ye, but the reason he hadn't was purely out of respect for Sword Venerable Fudao. After 3 breaths, Guwen raised his right hand, his palm facing the giant face in the sky. "Sword Venerable." As he began to speak, the giant face in the sky suddenly vanished, and Guwen withdrew his hand. The world instantly fell into silence. Li Ye's eyes widened. He saw the rolling thunderclouds silently torn open, creating a giant hole exactly where the mysterious giant face had been. He instinctively looked towards Guwen, seeing an old man enveloped in mist in Guwen's palm, the elder full of panic, unable to struggle or escape. Even though the old man was speaking, Li Ye couldn't hear a word. Guwen then disappeared from the spot. Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit appeared on Li Ye's shoulder, tiny hands patting her small chest, looking extremely relieved. Zhang Buku and the Master of Divine Exotic Realm were also stunned. What they had thought would be an unprecedented great war, the Master of Divine Exotic Realm had even prepared for the world to shatter, yet the mysterious great power from the Holy Court was just taken away like this. How high could Sword Venerable Fudeo's realm be? The Master of Divine Exotic Realm was filled with fear, a terrifying thought suddenly occurring to him. Could it be that Sword Venerable Fudao was truly a heavenly demon, and from the beginning he stood in opposition to the Holy Court? The waves crashed against the shore. Guan sat on the rock, having already activated the life-span barrier, his right hand opened, containing the old man sitting cross-legged inside, who was indeed the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma stationed at the domain master city of the Broken Sea domain. Guan was performing the great imprisoned soul immortal technique, searching the other's memories. This person, named Luo Shuzi, was a reincarnation of the heavenly demon, holding a third-grade heavenly position in the Holy Court, one of the confidants of the great Nether Saint King. Luo Zuzi's many memories were protected by a mystery spell, which would shatter and dissipate automatically if invaded, all related to the great Nether Saint King. Unfortunately, such methods were akin to child's play before Guan's divine sense. He easily deciphered them and glimpsed into Luo Zuzi's dealings with the great Nether Saint King. The creation of the Broken Sea domain was indeed set by the great Nether Saint King. Within it was his arch-nemesis, the Candle World Saint King. Initially, the great Nether Saint King merely wanted to exterminate the Candle World Saint King, keeping him eternally in reincarnation. Many under his command took this opportunity for their gain, leading to the calamity in the Broken Sea domain. After Guan made his move, the great Nether Saint King regarded him as an enemy. Now, the great Nether Saint King suspected Guan might also be a reincarnation of the heavenly demon, hence he sent Luo Shuzi over. According to Luo Zuzi's memories, the great Nether Saint King was not a heavenly demon, but he was fervently searching for the reincarnation of the heavenly demon, his intentions unknown to anyone. It appears it wasn't the Holy Court aiming for Sword Venerable Fudao but the great Nether Saint King's intent. The Holy Court had profound depth and numerous factions. Viewing the Broken Sea domain, it seemed vast, but in the eyes of the greater heavenly spirit land, it was but trivial, not even reaching the eyes of the standard first-rank heavenly position. The third-grade heavenly position, also known as the Holy King, was not short of position holders in the Holy Court. Ascending further were the second-grade heavenly position's Holy Minister and the first-grade heavenly position's Holy God. After searching Luo Zuzi's soul, Guan extinguished his soul. He wasn't concerned about further tricks from the great Nether Saint King. In fact, he was looking forward to seeing what the great Nether Saint King would do next. Facing an unknown adversary, regardless of how powerful his minions were, they would fall discreetly. Wouldn't the great Nether Saint King feel pressured? Although the Holy Court didn't care about the Broken Sea domain, the epic battle between Guan and the Great Cold Demon sect from years ago did reach the Holy Court. The Holy Court's ability to recruit Sword Venerable Fudao also showed that most of the upper echelons in the Holy Court were favorable towards Sword Venerable Fudao's actions, which is why the great Nether Saint King only dared to operate from the shadows. A prompt appeared before Guan. He had seized over 20,000 years of Luo Zuzi's lifespan. These great powers really are brash, acting so recklessly. Of course, facing an existence like Guan, even if they hide their true forms, Guan would find a way to locate them. Back in the Seven-Star Spirit Realm, the thousand-faced Divine Lord who escaped from Guan's clutches could also be located by him now, but seeing him behave, Guan didn't pursue him. Immortal cultivation was never easy. If one could recognize the situation and act accordingly, Guan would still admire that. To date, regarding the thousand-faced Divine Lord escaping from his hands, frankly, he was somewhat looking forward to seeing how far the thousand-faced Divine Lord could go. Guan stood up and vanished from the rock. In the main city of the Broken Sea domain, inside a dim grand hall, Domain Master Qing Songzi stood on the steps, hands clasped behind his back, his eyebrows deeply furrowed. How come it suddenly went quiet? Could it be that even Elder Luo Shuzi is not a match for Sword Venerable Fudao? Even if he is not, there shouldn't be silence, Qing Songzi thought, frowning. Dressed in a green robe, he exuded a calm demeanor, appearing in his 40s, with the oppressive aura of someone in power. He possessed the cultivation level of the 7th layer of the carefree primordial immortal realm and was recognized by the Holy Court as the domain master of Broken Sea Domain. He had never felt as anxious as he did today. The sea-breaking rift was just below. If there were any battles, he would definitely detect them immediately. He now dared not extend his divine sense into the rift for fear of provoking trouble. Even if Luo Shuzi failed, Sword Venerable Fudao likely wouldn't dare confront the Holy Court directly. He just needed to pretend ignorance. Just then, a series of footsteps approached. Lu Xinyi came walking briskly, leaving a trail of afterimages. He stopped before the steps, raising his hand in salute to Qing Songzi and smiling. "I wonder why the elder has summoned me. What is the matter?" Qing Songzi turned to look at him, revealing a smile as he said, "I and your father are fellow disciples. What elder are you speaking to?" "That's too formal. Call me your teacher uncle from now on." "Teacher uncle?" Lu Xinyi responded, his mind already calculating. The other clearly needed him, which was why he showed such an attitude. As for the great Nether Saint King behind Qing Songzi, he was also aware. Could it be that the main city of the Broken Sea Domain was thwarted by Sword Venerable Fudao? Lu Xinyi inwardly chuckled, knowing that over the years, many of the Holy Court's pieces infiltrated the Taizong continent and even the Supreme Sect to investigate Sword Venerable Fudao. He could guess that the great Nether Saint King was somewhat unrelenting. The Great Cold Demon Sect was a powerful weapon in the hands of the great Nether Saint King, gaining considerable power and authority by performing numerous dirty tasks for the Holy Court. Hence, his power continued to grow, and the errors he made weren't likely to shake his position. Indeed, the calamity in the Broken Sea Domain was seen as a mistake by the great Nether Saint King by the Holy Court, but such a mistake wasn't considered significant. Even several could deduce the great Nether Saint King's plans against the Candle World Saint King, many choosing to turn a blind eye. Weighing the ruling Holy King against the reincarnated Holy King was an easy choice. Qing Songzi looked at Lu Xinyi and asked with a smile, "Sword Venerable Fudao refuses to accept the Qi fortune from the Holy Court, having stayed in the Supreme Sect for so many years. What do you think should be done? Should he be left to his own devices, or should his background be investigated?" Lu Xinyi thought to himself, as expected, and after pondering he said, "Teacher uncle, do you think Sword Venerable Fudao is formidable?" "Of course, he's formidable, beyond my comparison," Qing Songzi answered without hesitation. Lu Xinyi continued, "Since that is the case, why bother to offend him? Wouldn't it be sufficient to just manage the Broken Sea Domain well?" Qing Songzi frowned. Lu Xinyi meaningfully said, "Sword Venerable Fudao appeared in the land of the reincarnation of the Candle World Saint King. These two very likely have a connection. Why Sword Venerable Fudao hides his identity is worth considering. Teacher uncle, my father once said, surviving in the Holy Court is like walking on thin ice. No matter how high one's cultivation level is, staying alive is the most important." Chapter 321 Evil Tree. The events that took place within the sea-breaking rift did not spread, and just like that, a divine immortal of wondrous dharma disappeared without a trace. Since then, Guan distinctly felt that the number of people on the continent probing for the Sword Venerable Fudao had sharply decreased. It seemed that the master of the Broken Sea Domain had already made a choice. If the Holy Court truly stopped scheming against Guan, he naturally didn't bother to hold a grudge. Living in peace was what he hoped for. A period of peace came to the Broken Sea Domain, and despite great talents and powers continuously emerging in the world, Guan hid within the Supreme Sect and observed the world's vicissitudes with a smile. In the blink of an eye, 50 years swiftly passed. Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley, and looking at his attribute panel, a smile spread across his face. Name, Guan, lifespan, 293/470, 569, 402. Today's harvest from the Outer World Cave had allowed him to gain nearly 40 million years of lifespan in one go. It was so exhilarating. This was still the first large-scale herbal harvest from the Outer World Cave. Every year he would plant high-rank medicinal herbs in the Outer World Cave, and the income from lifespan would only increase more and more. 50 years had gone by, and the supreme sect was flourishing. Nowadays, in terms of paper strength, it was one of the top great sects on the continent, with only the 7 stars spirit realm comparable. The servant disciples within the Third Medicine Valley had also been largely replaced. Some left, and others came. The scene in the Medicine Valley was much the same as it was 50 years ago. Along the way, Guan greeted his disciples non-stop. This scene left Ji Xiaoyu standing before the pavilion feeling somewhat dazed. After being away for so many years, the fact that the valley remained unchanged made her feel incredibly moved. Guan made his way to the pavilion, sizing up Ji Xiaoyu, and smiled. "Many years have passed, yet your aura is even more impressive." Ji Xiaoyu, dressed in green garments, still had an elegant charm. Her flowing clothes resembled a skirt, creating illusions of drifting clouds as they billowed in the wind. She fixed Guan with her gaze and said, "So many years have passed, and you are still at the core formation realm, while I have become a divinity transformation cultivator. Do you regret it?" "Regret? How could that be possible? Following you out, always encountering danger?" Guan mentally complained. Over the years, he had often used his divine thought to keep watch over Ji Xiaoyu, and he even acted a few times to ensure she always escaped danger by a hair's breadth. He knew all too well what she had been through. "I don't regret it at all. I've had a good time these years." As for cultivation level, slow and steady wins the race. "I will condense the nascent soul sooner or later," Guan replied casually. Ji Xiaoyu scrutinized him closely, and upon confirming that he wasn't lying, a smile appeared on her face. What she admired most was Guan's temperament. She had never seen him angry or envious, as he always seemed to be smiling. "Shall we talk upstairs?" Guan asked with a smile, knowing Ji Xiaoyu had a lot to say. For Guan, the journeys Ji Xiaoyu had embarked upon these past years couldn't compare to the distance of a single step for him, but for her, these decades were lengthy, and he would occasionally hear her murmuring to a campfire when alone. The stealing the 5 elements, who had been tailing Ji Xiaoyu, had never shown up, merely escorting her in secret for a part of her journey. Once they were upstairs in the house, Ji Xiaoyu began recounting her experiences throughout the years. Her stories were rich, with demon slaying, thrilling adventures, and even encounters with old grudges. Guan listened intently, chiming in from time to time, keeping Ji Xiaoyu's desire to share stories high. After more than an ancient hour, Ji Xiaoyu finally finished telling her tales. Guan exclaimed, "How exciting, just like the stories narrated by storytellers." Ji Xiaoyu laughed. "I obtained the inheritance left by someone from a previous life. The journey was worthwhile, but it's unknown how far I can go. It should be the second layer of the immortal path." Guan had seen that secret realm, created by a loose immortal, which meant that Ji Xiaoyu's predecessor's highest cultivation realm reached the loose immortal realm. For the current Ji Xiaoyu, how formidable a loose immortal was practically out of reach. Guan asked with a smile, "What are your plans going forward?" Ji Xiaoyu replied, "Settle for a few decades before considering another journey. The ranking competition is about to begin, which is a good opportunity to enjoy the excitement. The Supreme Sect is not what it used to be, and this ranking competition will surely be lively. It's said that a loose immortal joined the Supreme Sect in the last couple of years. Have you heard about the loose immortal?" As Guan spoke of the competition, he became more talkative. Ji Xiaoyu watched him with a slight smile on her lips. This guy still loved to see the world bustling. Listening to Guan talk about the highlights of the ranking competition, along with the sounds of insects and voices from outside the window, Ji Xiaoyu's heart fell into tranquility. Having witnessed the world's turmoil, she now felt a sense of peace inside, free of any pressure or concern. After spending the afternoon with Ji Xiaoyu, Guan finally left the Third Medicine Valley and headed to the Mystic Valley's 8 scenic caves underground. He arrived in front of the green vine tree, where a large cauldron was set up, surrounded by various instruments. Over the past 30 years, he had been studying the art of artifact refining. He wasn't after creating any phenomenal Dharma treasures, but rather sought realizations through the process of forging. The Dharma treasures he had forged by now were coveted by the Supreme Sect, but he didn't hand them over to the sect, instead tossing them to the Immortals seeking island for sale, exchanging the spirit stones received for seeds and refining materials. With a cultivation of divine thought immortal status, it wasn't difficult for Guwen to forge immortal treasures, but creating supreme immortal path treasures was still out of reach. Supreme immortal path treasures could only be created by immensely powerful beings standing at the peak of the 9 heavens of the immortal path, the crystallization of a lifetime's Tao from a major immortal path power. In the entire great heavenly spirit land, forces that owned supreme immortal path treasures were territorial overlords, and those who could fully wield the power of such treasures were few and far between. At least Guwen had yet to see such individuals. Long Zhan had one such treasure. When he reached the pinnacle of the 9 heavens of the immortal path, he could suppress an entire universe with just one treasure, incredibly formidable. Guwen had just approached the cauldron when it, along with the surrounding instruments, began to blaze with fire. 2 vines stretched from behind, beginning to massage Guwen's shoulders. "Master, that guy, are you really not going to intervene?" The voice of the green vine tree sounded, still similar to Jiang Qiong, but weaker. Guwen replied, "It's fine. It's impossible for the other party to step foot here." Because of the influence of Sword Venerable Fudao, the reputation of the Supreme Sect had far outshone its actual strength. Thus, the upcoming ranking competition also attracted a multitude of overseas cultivators and demons. Among them was a presence that made the green vine tree afraid, and Guwen had already located that presence. It was a shape-shifting tree demon, its cultivation having reached the wandering immortal stage, who was currently hiding its cultivation level and joining the ranking competition as a Mahayana cultivator. A wandering immortal posed no threat to Guwen, and therefore he didn't care. What he did care about was another individual. Someone from the immortal spirit dynasty had arrived at the Supreme Sect, whose cultivation level was that of a carefree primordial immortal, but had hidden it, presenting themselves merely as an ordinary loose immortal. Of course, even a loose immortal was enough to be treated as an honored guest by the Supreme Sect. Guwen was curious about the purpose of the immortal spirit dynasty's visit. There would be quite a show at this ranking competition. "Master, can you subdue him?" the green vine tree cautiously asked. Guwen, thinking it was worried, grunted in affirmation. He felt the vines on his shoulders tremble, followed by the voice of green vine tree, "Then can you capture him and let me eat him?" Guwen was taken aback and turned to look at the green vine tree in surprise. It had been so afraid moments ago, and now it wanted to eat someone? He had almost forgotten that the green vine tree came from the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, a demon path sect, so naturally, it could be an evil tree. "Don't get any funny ideas, or watch out, I might eat you instead," Guwen said in no good mood. The green vine tree used to love eating lamb. If its murderous nature wasn't restrained, Guwen feared for his disciples' safety. He kept the green vine tree mainly for the production of the green vine fruit. To him now, the green vine tree was not indispensable. Seemingly sensing Guwen's displeasure, the green vine tree fell silent, and the 2 vines massaging his shoulders became even more careful. The next day at noon, Guwen arrived at the outer gate city riding the blood prison Great Saint. The city was overcrowded, and even the air was bustling with a multitude of cultivators and demons. 50 years had passed, and Guwen had even more acquaintances in the city. Wherever he went, people greeted him. He also encountered the son of Zuijian, Lin, who was also Li Ya's childhood friend. Not practicing the sword Dao, he was a genuine prodigy. Now, Lin had completely abandoned the sword Dao and become a modestly famous talent. The 2 would meet every year, and their relationship remained strong. Lin began to complain about his father straight away. It was once again because of Sword Venerable Fudao that had offended a great cultivator. Day and night, he guarded the heaven-cutting axe. Despite this, Zuijian had offended quite a few, resulting in frequent intrusions and investigations into the Zhou family. Luckily, with Sword Venerable Fudao around, no one dared make a move. Still, the Zhou family lived in constant fear of a catastrophe befalling them. Suddenly, Guwen thought he should probably give Zuijian some advice. To be honest, he clearly saw the devotion in Zui Yijian's attitude and felt it deserved recognition. He should take the opportunity to guide him, not letting Zui Yijian's efforts go to waste. After chatting for a while, they parted ways. Guwen, using his mind, communicated with the blood prison great saint, who changed direction. The crowd surged, vendors on both sides shouted continuously, and Guwen rode on the back of the blood prison great saint, looking curiously at everything along the way. This feeling was much like attending a fair. Unlike other meetings, the ranking competition was held every 100 years, making it the most important event for the Supreme Sect and even the entire Taizong continent, with a liveliness that couldn't be compared to any other time. The arrival of many sects also brought many new items. After 30 minutes, the blood prison great saint stopped in front of a pavilion, and Guwen dismounted, entering a store named the Pavilion of Wonders. Once inside the hall, his vision was filled with numerous treasures, and his gaze fell upon an individual. Zhang Xianwang, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm, Level 7359098/70000/2500000, 2.5 million years of ultimate lifespan. Guwen estimated he had the potential to reach the Dao Void Mysterious Immortal level. This person was the Carefree Primordial Immortal from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty, standing in front of a shelf, toying with a broken flute. Guwen stepped forward, passing by his side. Zhang Xianwang didn't pay him any mind, and both stood in front of the same shelf, admiring treasures. After a while, Zhang Xianwang glanced at Guwen, and at that glance, his eyebrows suddenly raised. "Young man, where do those gold patterns on your forehead come from?" Zhang Xianwang asked, his tone gentle and devoid of any great cultivator's assertiveness. Guwen touched his forehead and smiled. "One night when I woke up, this gold pattern had appeared. Does Daoist friend know its origin?" Chapter 322, The Guidance of the Dao. These are Dao patterns, the initial manifestation of the Dao. Some people are born with the Dao, some cultivate it later in life. Like the sudden gain you've experienced is not unheard of. Regardless, possessing Dao patterns means that sooner or later, you will transcend the mortal plane and become an immortal. Let me offer you my early congratulations. Zhang Xianwang spoke with a chuckle, appreciation gleaming in his eyes. Guwen immediately clasped his fists in response. "This one's name is Guwen. May I inquire about my Daoist friend's illustrious name?" He could feel that Zhang Xianwang was deducing his karma, but he didn't mind. His own karmic manifestations had long been altered by him. Unless one's realm was higher than his, looking at his true self would reveal only the life of an ordinary disciple tending the fields, unremarkable and plain. "I am Zhang Xianwang, from a very distant place. To meet is to be fated. Why don't you show me around? I'd also like to learn about the Heavenly Ranking Tournament and the Supreme Sect." Faced with Zhang Xianwang's suggestion, Guwen naturally wouldn't refuse. After all, he was here for Zhang Xianwang. The two walked out of the treasure pavilion, and upon seeing Guwen's mount, Zhang Xianwang didn't think much of it as he couldn't see through the path of returning primordial spirit. On the way, Guwen introduced the Supreme Sect, and when he mentioned the sword Venerable Fu Dao, Zhang Xianwang immediately inquired about the specific details. As they discussed the sword Venerable Fu Dao, Guwen's face lit up with fanaticism, praising him to the skies. The blood prison great saint remained expressionless, yet inwardly he was impressed. Such magnanimity from his master was worth learning. If he were Zhang Xianwang, he would never associate Guwen with the sword Venerable Fu Dao. Not only did Zhang Xianwang find the blood prison great saint ordinary, but the blood prison great saint also didn't think highly of Zhang Xianwang. Both were great cultivators hiding their true cultivation levels, with inevitable pride within them. Inadvertently, the two arrived near the heavenly repair platform. Guwen asked with a smile, "There's a heaven-cutting axe on the platform, would you like to give it a try?" Zhang Xianwang gazed off into the distance, shook his head slightly. "I'm certain I cannot pull it out, no need." He turned back towards Guwen. "He'll be staying at the Supreme Sect for quite some time. Next time we meet, he'll treat you to a drink. If someone tries to tempt you to leave the Supreme Sect, you'd better refuse." Possessing Dao patterns is an innate blessing, but they can also attract calamities. At least within the Supreme Sect, the sword Venerable Fudao protects you, so others won't dare to mess around. After speaking, he turned and left. Guwen looked at his retreating figure, thinking to himself that this person was quite agreeable. He had assumed that the people from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty were all haughty as they seldom interacted with the outside world. Yet today's encounter had given Guwen a different perspective on the Immortal Spirit Dynasty. Guwen looked distantly towards the heaven-cutting axe, where Zuijin stood by the axe side, guarding it day in and day out for 10 years. Now, when one mentioned the heaven-cutting axe, it was hard to bypass Zuijin. Guwen's thoughts stirred, his divine thought mixed with powerful sword intent boldly invading Zuijin's eyes, causing him to become dazed. Immediately after, Guwen rode the blood prison great saint in another direction, without approaching the platform. Zhang Xianwang, not yet far off, stopped in his tracks and turned around, his eyes widening in astonishment. At the same time, a sky-reaching sword intent erupted from Zuijin, causing cultivators nearby to swiftly retreat, figures materializing out of nowhere around the heaven-cutting axe, isolating Zuijin. Zuijin's eyes lost their luster, and he stood there dazed, sword intent rising from below, billowing his robes and hair. Feeling the sword intent belonging to sword Venerable Fudao, the great cultivators of the Supreme Sect all breathed a sigh of relief. What's happened to him? It's the sword intent of sword Venerable Fudao. Feel it carefully, Zuijin's sword chi is growing stronger. Is sword Venerable Fudao giving him guidance? If it's him, I can understand. After all, he has stood guard here for so many years. So he wasn't lying. Did sword Venerable Fudao really pat his shoulder back then? The cultivators murmured among themselves as Zuijin was immersed in the sword intent, unable to extricate himself. Far beneath the heavenly repair platform, Zhang Xianwang felt the sword intent emanating from Zuijin's body, and his mind was profoundly shaken. He was, after all, a carefree primordial immortal, yet he could not detect sword Venerable Fudao making his move. He even failed to comprehend how sword Venerable Fudao's sword intent could lead Zuijin into a state of path enlightenment. At this moment, he realized his own insignificance. The carefree primordial immortal was merely at ease. He had not yet reached the stage of pondering the great Tao. In his peripheral vision was the retreating figure of Guwen, who nonetheless had not caught his attention. He couldn't imagine that Guwen, who had chosen a different path from his own, was the very sword Venerable Fudao who had brought him such astonishment. Guwen did not look back, keeping his achievements and fame concealed. Hearing the distant clamor, the blood prison great saint also did not turn his head, knowing that the legendary sword Venerable Fudao was right behind him. When immortals intervene, mortals tend to fuss over nothing. How tedious! After seeing Zhang Xianwang, Guwen continued roaming around the city, purchased many items, and then returned to the valley. Back in the Third Medicine Valley, Guwen found an Exon and handed over the things he had purchased. The Third Medicine Valley also stored many medicinal herbs, elixirs, secret books, and magic artifacts, allowing servant disciples to purchase them directly at lower prices than in the city. This was a benefit Guwen bestowed upon his disciples. Comparing the prices, they grew even more grateful to him. Such deeds meant that even after servant disciples completed their foundation establishment and later saw Guwen, they would still address him respectfully as master. After arranging all of this, Guwen prepared to go upstairs and read. Coincidentally, Xianxia arrived at that moment. Guwen had no choice but to stop and wait for her. Over these years, Xianxia had not neglected her proper affairs and had even passed on her insights to the Supreme Sect, helping to create many transmission jade slips. These allowed disciples to cultivate not just by understanding the text, but by visualizing the cultivation scenes, a merit that garnered her true respect within the Supreme Sect. "Come upstairs quick, there's something great," Xianxia said in a rush and then hurried upstairs, with Guwen following behind. Inside the room, once the door was closed, Guwen felt the aura below grow faint. It was obvious that Ji Xiaoyu was attempting to eavesdrop again. Reaching the table, Xianxia pulled out a painting and quickly spread it open. Guwen walked over to look and saw an ancient painting, depicting many naked people kneeling on the ground, waving towards the sky, where a group of people robed in splendor floated amidst the clouds as if they were immortal beings. I previously came across an incomplete ancient scroll and have been analyzing it daily, imagining its complete scene. Perhaps there is a hidden guidance within the Tao leading me, said Xianxia, brimming with pride. It was imagined? Upon closer inspection, Guwen noticed that the contours of the environment captured in the painting contain the mysteries of heaven and earth rules. Could it be that there was indeed a Tao guiding Xianxia? Something wasn't right. Why would it be Xianxia? Guwen began to doubt whether Xianxia truly could reach enlightenment through music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. He had earlier made a move that had shocked Zhang Xianwang, and now it was Xianxia's turn to shock him. To grasp the heaven and earth rules without stepping into the immortal path realm? That was preposterous. Could she be the reincarnation of an immortal? But that shouldn't be the case. If she were the reincarnation of a great power, Guwen would likely have perceived some hints, just like with Ji Xiaoyu and Yang Jian. No matter how he looked at her, Xianxia did not appear to have a significant background. Chapter 323 The Path of Destiny. Guwen couldn't help but use lifespan detection on Xianxia. Xianxia, Divinity Transformation Realm, second layer 329/1200/5800, her maximum lifespan had increased by more than 1,000 years. Could it be that she also possessed an innate enlightenment saint body? Filled with curiosity, Guwen decided to observe Xianxia more in the future. As Xianxia began to narrate the process of her painting, Guwen carefully looked at the scroll before him. It seemed to depict a mortal pleading for the compassion of an immortal, but the execution was quite strange. The person kneeling on the ground was smiling, while the high and mighty immortal had a frown. The outline of the clouds, the lines of the mountains, the currents in the rivers, etc., all were manifestations of the rules of heaven and earth. Once the scroll was unfurled, the actual rules of heaven and earth subtly drew closer to it. In the eyes of a divine thought true immortal, the world became both bizarre and splendid. Xianxia, immersed in it, couldn't feel the changes in the rules of heaven and earth and continued to excitedly share her creative process. Guwen began to probe into the causality surrounding Xianxia and saw all of the experiences of her life. He suddenly realized that, without being aware of it, he had become the person most closely tied to the causality of Xianxia's life. The relationship between Xianxia and the Daotian sect grew increasingly distant. Although she was the daughter of the sect hierarch, her father had many children. Without regular contact, the bond between father and daughter became ever more distant, with her mother having passed away long ago. Guwen suddenly had a bold thought. Could it be that Xianxia was influenced by him? After all, he was a divine thought true immortal. Even though he concealed his cultivation level, his essence of life was still different from the surrounding disciples. Over the years, the time it took for disciples to enter Medicine Valley and complete their apprenticeship had become increasingly short, which could also be due to his influence. The degree to which Xianxia had reached was not to be underestimated. Her innate comprehension was remarkable. But without Guwen, it might have been very difficult for her to achieve this step. Gradually, Guwen's understanding of the way of cause and effect deepened. On reflection, Guwen had influenced the entire Supreme Sect. Regardless of the reason, the Supreme Sect indeed had entered an unprecedented phase of rapid development. After a while, Xianxia's voice brought Guwen's thoughts back to the present. "Hey, are you listening?" Guwen turned to look at Xianxia, who had a gritted teeth expression that didn't look fierce, but rather made Guwen want to reach out and pinch her. "I'm listening, you are really incredible. I can't understand how you did it. If what you say is true, you might really have the talent for enlightenment," Guwen praised. Upon hearing this, a broad smile broke across Xianxia's face. She chuckled proudly and said, "This painting is for you then. I'll continue to meditate." With that, she turned and left. Guwen didn't see her off, but instead turned his gaze back to the scroll on the table. He felt the energy from below returning to normal. Ji Xiaoyu was once again immersed in her cultivation, but he didn't care. He sat on the chair, looking at the scroll, lost in thought. The influence he had on his surroundings wasn't just active from his side but also aided by the momentum of heaven and earth, which gave him a deeper understanding of the ways of heaven and earth. He had this inexplicable feeling that he wanted to hide, but the way of heaven and earth did not want him to hide, hence it influenced the environment around him. The great momentum of heaven and earth was like a surging tide, the nets of cause and effect were like heaven-trapping webs. All beings could neither resist them nor escape. Everything has its advantages and disadvantages. While helping the environment around him, he would also be drawn into more webs of causality. In that moment, Guwen suddenly understood why many great powers retreated into seclusion indefinitely. It might not be merely because enlightenment took so much time. Just like the great cold demon sect, there must be many great cultivators hidden away in seclusion who had evaded disaster precisely because they withdrew from the world. Is this not a way of surviving? Guwen was not fearful because of this revelation. Rather, he was contemplating how heaven and earth operated the laws of causality and destiny, creating a set of rules that most beings fear. Destiny. Guwen never believed in an irresistible destiny. That which is irresistible is only so because it still lies within the rules. If one's strength surpasses the rules, how can one be manipulated? As for how to transcend destiny and surpass the ways of heaven and earth, that was the real direction Guwen needed to think about. He sat in his room without moving all night, and early the next day, he rode the blood prison great saint to the outer gate city to watch the excitement. A night had passed, and Zuijian was still in deep enlightenment, with over 100 great cultivators from the supreme sect protecting him and temporarily suspending the inheritance assessment of the heaven-cutting axe, not allowing anyone to approach Zuijian. Zuijian's cultivation level was not worth mentioning in the current supreme sect, but as he received the sword intent inheritance of the sword Venerable Fudao, it had a completely different significance. The supreme sect placed great importance on it as a way to show respect to the sword Venerable Fudao. As Guwen arrived at the outer gate city not long after, he encountered a middle-aged man accompanied by several young men and women. They were walking among the crowd, looking around curiously, finding everything new and amazing. "Chuanyue, long time no see." A voice reached Chuanyu's ears, prompting him to turn his head instinctively, only to see the blood prison great saint standing next to Guwen. The blood prison great saint was as tall as an adult and had a domineering presence, but Chuanyue had seen larger demon pets and mounts, so he was not flustered. Chuanyue looked at Guwen with doubt and asked, "You are?" The fact that the other person was riding a mount meant he must be a cultivator, and Chuanyue had to approach him cautiously. The descendants of the Chuanyue family following behind were just as curious, sizing up Guwen, surprised to find that someone in the supreme sect knew their grandfather. Guwen smiled and said, "Have you forgotten? I met you in your home when you were only 15 years old. You kept nagging your grandfather to take you on the path of immortal cultivation." Chuanyue was stunned, then his eyes widened in astonishment and he asked, "You're the person who visited my grandfather back then? How come you, so young?" Guwen asked, "How is your grandfather?" Chuanyue hurriedly replied, "He's quite well, spends his days cultivating and drinking tea, with no need to worry about anything." The descendants of the Chuanyue family looked at one another in confusion. Their grandfather's grandfather was the primordial ancestor of their family, wasn't he? They had only seen Xiaochuan once or twice, and in their minds, Xiaochuan was amiable, but with a status far beyond theirs, they could only feel reverence. After a conversation, Guwen learned that Chuanyue had come to bring his descendants to broaden their horizons, while also seeking opportunities. Guwen took out a token from his sleeve and tossed it to Chuanyue. If their aptitude is not exceptionally outstanding and there are no other connections, they can seek to become servant disciples at the Chores Hall. With this token of mine, you can enter the Third Medicine Valley. Chuanyue instinctively caught the token and was about to inquire further when the blood prison great saint took a step forward and brushed past him. Chuanyue turned to look at Guwen's retreating figure and asked, "Senior, how should I address you?" Guwen simply raised his hand and made no sound. Chuanyue couldn't help but stare at the token in his hand, deeply puzzled. At that moment, another male cultivator came over and laughed, "Brother, you're in luck to be connected to the Third Medicine Valley." With such good fortune, foundation establishment is as good as certain, making a solid foundation for your path of immortal cultivation. Foundation establishment. The descendants of the Chuanyue family immediately brightened up, their breathing quickening. Chuanyue quickly saluted the male cultivator and inquired about the situation in the Third Medicine Valley. The male cultivator gave a rough introduction, mentioning thousands of servant disciples, countless medicinal herbs, and the high-ranking members of the supreme sect that could be seen in the valley every day, among others. The information left Chuanyue dumbstruck. Just who was the person they had just met to have such influence? Unable to contain himself, Chuanyue asked, "Do you know the person we just met?" The male cultivator shook his head with a smile, clapped Chuanyue on the shoulder, and walked away, leaving Chuanyue even more curious and in awe of Guwen. The now distant Guwen couldn't help but smile wryly to himself. That kid has always loved playing these little tricks back in Medicine Valley. The cultivator who had introduced Chuanyue to the Third Medicine Valley was precisely a disciple who had graduated from there. By now, the number of disciples who had graduated from the Third Medicine Valley and Mystic Valley had reached tens of thousands, which is why Guwen often encountered familiar faces. Guwen's reputation had also spread far and wide, and considering the number of foundation establishment pills needed by these disciples, who else within the inner and outer sects could supply them? Moreover, over the years, Guwen had indeed made no additional demands of the servant disciples, which is what made him admirable. Guwen soon arrived at the book collection hall, ready to chat with the book enthusiasts there for a while. 7 days later, the Golden List Grand Tournament officially commenced. The Nine-Fingered Divine Lord also represented the Supreme Sect in the battle. With Li Ya unable to return, the Supreme Sect needed the combat strength of a wandering immortal. How the Supreme Sect persuaded the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, Guwen did not know. He had not watched at that time and wasn't interested in finding out now. That day, LV Baitin came to find Guwen, pulling him who was watching the Golden List combat into the attic. Aside from the new disciples who were curious, many people ignored it as commonplace. Once seated inside the house, LV Baitin, unusually, did not discuss official matters but instead talked about his son, LV Xian. That kid really is blindly loyal to Li Xiandao. I have no idea what he's thinking. No matter how the Taizong dynasty develops, it remains the world of the Li family. What could he possibly gain? LV Baitin complained indignantly. Guwen was reluctant to comment on their father-son matters. It must be said that LV Baitin and Li Xiandao were similar, both in their actions and their relationships with their sons. Originally, Li Ya also despised Li Xiandao, while LV Xian still seeks the life of LV Baitin to this day. Guwen had no interest in untangling their causality. An outsider's clarity was useless on family matters. Recently, Li Xiandao arranged for him to go to the domain master city of Broken Sea Domain. I'm not sure if it's a blessing or a curse. The establishment of the Broken Sea Domain master city makes me feel like it's targeted against the sword Venerable Fudao, LV Baitin said with concern. Guwen inquired, "Why do you think so?" The Great Cold Demon sect appeared long before this domain was established, which means that even though the Holy Court sets the order, it does not manage specific locales. When I put myself in the place of the Holy Court, no matter how I speculate, establishing the Broken Sea Domain seems to be a means of defense, while also investigating the sword Venerable Fudao. In that case, why don't you go to the Heaven-Cutting Axe and ask the sword Venerable Fudao to leave? Nonsense. Don't spout such things in the future. LV Baitin glared and spoke sternly. Guwen smiled helplessly. This man was prone to irritation. LV Baitin, following that, brought up Li Lingtian. Over the years, Li Lingtian had gained a great reputation, having previously participated in and topped the Golden List Grand Tournament and the 100 Clans Grand Meeting, creating a bigger sensation than in Hao and LV Xian of years past. To this, Guwen had no particular stance. With Li Lingxian's return to the Taizong continent, it was obvious he was targeting Yang Jian. Guwen found it hard to take an interest in the squabbles of the younger generations. What he cared more about was the identity of the mysterious great cultivator who had arrived at the Supreme Sect that day. Chapter 324 Heaven Sect, Immortal King Legend. After LV Bayin left, Guwen followed down the staircase, continuing to watch the excitement. Now, the Mystic Heart Realm combat was underway. Its spectacle reflected upon the sky, inciting copious discussions among the disciples in the valley. How formidable! Is this what the Mystic Heart Realm is like? What's this? Just wait until you see the Mahayana Realm combat. That is truly thrilling, not to mention the Immortal combat. Even here within the valley, you can feel a sense of oppression. It's an eye-opener. I wonder if we'll ever reach this stage? How could we not? Cultivate diligently, enter the third Medicine Valley, and your starting point will already be higher than 90% of the disciples. That's right. Even if one is a scion of a noble family, without sufficient aptitude, they start as servant disciples too. Do you know about Li Ye from Divine Exotic City? He's my master's junior brother, and they entered the Medicine Valley on the same day. I know. My master once said that Li Ye often used to cry, feeling hopeless about his future. It was my master who inspired him. As the disciples conversed, their topics began to digress. The third Medicine Valley's replacement of old and new was rapid, with many new disciples joining each year. The number of disciples registered in the valley had already surpassed 1,800. Guwen naturally mingled among the groups of disciples without causing a disturbance. They didn't need to stand to greet each other or harbor suspicions, a mood that arose from Guwen's amiable manner, which also shaped the disciples' approach to interaction and life. Guwen sat beside an Exen and inquired about the previous battles. Before an Exen could reply, Yuinging came and sat down on Guwen's other side, eagerly jumping into the conversation and briefing him on the situation. Her excitement stemmed from the great cultivators of the Star Sea congregations who also came to participate, including a senior she admired. She believed that this senior could capture first place on the Immortal list. To this, Guwen merely smiled. This Immortal list tournament was a gathering of sleeping dragons and crouching tigers, with many who concealed their true cultivation level and identities. Aspiring to the first place was very difficult. The arrival of a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to participate baffled Guwen. What was their reasoning? No matter how you looked at it, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma's participation in the Immortal list tournament seemed to devalue their status, and they might even provoke the sword Venerable Fudao, leading to a deadly disaster. Guwen couldn't understand. The Immortal Spirit Dynasty sent people, the Holy Court also sent delegates, and now the mysterious divine immortal of wondrous Dharma appeared as well. But what comes is to be accepted. Currently, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma still remained a mysterious presence, seen but never met. The carefree primordial immortal stood as the highest entity the immortal cultivation sects could reach. As for the Tao Void mysterious immortal, who existed one realm higher, Guwen had not yet encountered any. An Exen thought that the Nine-Fingered Divine Lord could win first place, sparking a debate with Yu Yingying. Given Nzin's temperament, she naturally could not out-argue Yu Yingying. Guwen couldn't just watch his precious disciple get pushed around, so he joined the debate, quickly causing Yu Yingying's face to flush red. 2 days swiftly passed by. On this day, in the early morning hours, although dawn had just broken, many figures were already bustling about in the city. Within a narrow alley, Zhang Xianwang from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty stopped in his tracks. Tilting his head slightly, he glanced askew at the person behind him. "Why do you follow me?" Zhang Xianwang asked calmly. Standing behind him was a white-haired old man, exuding an air of immortality. His mere presence compelled the passing cultivators at the alleyway entrance to take another look. The white-haired elder stared at Zhang Xianwang and inquired, "Why has one from the Immortal Dynasty come to this place?" Zhang Xianwang turned to face the elder, his expression indifferent as he countered, "If you do not answer, how shall I?" The elder replied, "You may call me Heaven Sect." Heaven Sect. Zhang Xianwang's face paled, a look of incredulity spreading across it as he exclaimed, "Heaven Sect? How is that possible? 50,000 years ago, had you not already?" Heaven Sect interrupted, "It's your turn to answer now." Zhang Xianwang's gaze flickered. He remained silent for a moment. You probably don't want to cause a conflict here. Surely there are holy court cultivators within the supreme sect. The emotionless tone of Heaven's sect sent chills down one's spine. Taking a deep breath, Zhang Xianwang said, "I'm here to recruit Sword Venerable Fudao." "And you?" Heaven's sect replied, "I come for an old acquaintance." "An old acquaintance?" "Since our purposes do not conflict, let's not disturb each other any further." Having said that, Heaven's sect turned to leave. Just then, a voice called out, "Daoist friend Zhang, what brings you here?" The speaker was none other than Guan, approaching Heaven's sect head-on, the two passing each other. Heaven's sect, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm 7th Layer 789023/1700000/1750000, a formidable old monster who has lived for 788,000 years. On the 7th layer of the Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma Realm, that's frightening, almost catching up to me. Guan thought to himself as he looked at Zhang Xianwang, his face breaking into a surprised smile. Seeing Guan, Zhang Xianwang couldn't help but smile. After Heaven's sect left the alley, Guan then asked, "Who was that person just now? Were they troubling you? Do you need me to contact the Deacon Hall?" Hearing this made Zhang Xianwang smile even more. He laughingly said, "No trouble at all. But do you know what his cultivation level is?" "What cultivation level? Divinity transformation realm? Void crossing realm? Or unification?" As he continued, Guan's voice rose several notches in apprehension. Zhang Xianwang, bemused, changed the subject. "What brings you here?" Guan responded, "I came to purchase seeds for medicinal herbs." "And you?" The two began to chat, and Zhang Xianwang, favorably impressed by Guan, did not fuss about their disparity in cultivation level and conversed as equals. After a while, Guan asked, "You seem quite impressive. Did you sign up for the Immortal list tournament?" "No, I'm here for a different matter." "May I help you with it?" "There's no need for that." "All right then, I won't disturb you any further." Guan bowed in farewell, then departed. Zhang Xianwang watched him go, a hint of hesitation in his heart. Guan pondered why Zhang Xianwang sought to recruit him. He had previously thought the Immortal Spirit Dynasty was rather xenophobic and unlikely to be recruiting him into their ranks, meaning it must be some other scheming. After leaving the alley, Guan continued wandering about the city, planning to buy some interesting trinkets for Tian Yaoer to lift her spirits. Managing the outer world cave was quite taxing. Guan had to show favor to keep her from feeling disheartened. Just after passing two streets, Guan spotted Heaven's sect. As they were about to pass by each other, Heaven's sect suddenly raised a hand and held onto Guan's shoulder. Guan quirked an eyebrow, feeling uneasy about being touched on the shoulder. He turned his head toward Heaven's sect, asking in surprise, "You? Are you the same person from before?" Heaven's sect's eyes were fixed on the Immortal King crown on Guan's forehead, his gaze piercing. Guan felt his heart drop. Could it be that this person saw through the disguise of the Immortal King crown? "Leave the Supreme Sect tonight, and I will find you, offering you a chance for rebirth anew." With these words, Heaven's sect turned and walked away. Guan was confused. From Heaven's sect's statement, it seemed that he hadn't guessed that Guan was Sword Venerable Fudao. But what was the reason then? As Guan watched him leave, continuing on his way, he pondered the matter. Not far away, within the crowd, Zhang Xianwang frowned and ultimately sighed, heading in the opposite direction from Heaven's sect. The afternoon's combat had reached its pinnacle with two Nirvana realm great cultivators clashing, one of whom was from the Supreme Sect. Naturally, both hailed from the Ocean Cultivators. The two Nirvana realm great cultivators employed spells, divine skills, demon pets, formations, and various other arts, comprehensively displaying to the spectators what it meant to be an immortal cultivator. Within the same realm, the higher one's level, the harder it was to slay the opponent, easily leading to a prolonged, fierce battle. Guan found it highly entertaining. These individuals' cultivation levels were average, but their variety in battle was impressive. Guan, who could only defeat enemies instantly, couldn't experience this kind of thrill and could only feel envious. Until the night descended, Guan left Mystic Valley alone, flying towards the distance. His furrowed brow and tense demeanor were acted out deliberately. To demonstrate resolve, he sped up his flight. An hour later, Guan felt a surge of mana approaching and immediately prepared himself, yielding to the other's intention. At first glance, he seemed to plummet suddenly, landing in a forest. Once on the ground, he quickly stood up, pretending to be panicked. When he saw Heaven Sect's figure, he finally calmed down. Heaven Sect emerged from the darkness, speaking admiringly, "You are courageous indeed. It's no wonder you dared to accept the Immortal King crown. Though I do not know why it has not devoured you, regardless, you have received the recognition of an immortal path supreme treasure. Do you have a master?" Guan shook his head. "I don't. Is the Immortal King crown the diadem on my head? I just stumbled upon it somewhere." He had already altered his own causality, so even Heaven Sect would be misled. Certainly, Heaven Sect had deduced through causality that Guan bought the Immortal King crown at a bargain price from a treasure pavilion. At that time, the crown seemed freshly unearthed and antiquated. How could a divine immortal of wondrous dharma see through the trickeries of a Tao void mysterious immortal? Do you wish to learn about the origins of the Immortal King crown? Once you know, you will not be able to maintain a life of tranquility, Heaven Sect said to Guan, his voice soft. Guan replied with a wry smile, "Can I go back now?" "No, once you have come, there is no turning back." "Then why do you ask?" "The way of Heaven Sect is the heavenly Tao, and the heavenly Tao must comply with the will of the people. Does this count?" "You came, so it counts." Guan felt that this person was being unreasonable, but since he sensed no hostility from Heaven Sect, he decided to listen to what was to be said. Tending to plants and occasionally craving some excitement wasn't too bad. He dared to face thrills also because Heaven Sect posed no threat to him. The Immortal King crown was forged by the first immortal king of the great heavenly spirit land, who existed during the distant primordial times, when the heavens and earth first parted. Back then, there was no holy court, no heavenly Tao rules in the outer heaven. Heaven Sect's voice filled with a mysterious aura, causing Guan to glimpse ancient scenes. The vast earth stretched out, and colossal beasts roamed freely. There were no systems, no sects, no dynasties. He saw the silhouette of the Immortal King, blurred yet emanating a terrifying presence that reminded him of Long Zhan. This indicated that the Immortal King stood on the same level as Long Zhan, the 9th level of Immortal Path. When the Immortal King declared, "I am the Immortal King," thunder roared, and the land was stricken by various natural disasters. Thinking too highly of himself, the Immortal King sought to challenge the heavenly Tao, striving to unify all creation, to venture into the outer heaven, and in doing so, offended the will of the heavens. He was ultimately afflicted by the curse of the heavenly Tao and, upon his impending death, sealed his own Tao within the Immortal King crown. The Immortal King crown is also the first ever Immortal Path supreme treasure in recorded history. At the very least, it is the first within the great heavenly spirit land. Heaven Sect's tone remained emotionless. Chapter 325 Heavenly Tao Inheritance. The First Immortal King, the First Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Guan had felt a power from the Immortal King that transcended the epics, a mighty will that challenged the heavenly Tao. Heaven Sect continued to watch over Guan and spoke further. Ever since the fall of the Immortal King, the world was submerged by the oceans, ushering in an era of decline. But from destruction comes creation, and even in the most perilous environments, new beings are nurtured. Over the long epochs, many have emulated the Immortal King. The title he bestowed upon himself also became a glory pursued by later generations of cultivators, continually producing new immortal kings who challenged the authority of heavens and gradually increased the heavenly restraints imposed on this world. Epochs change, and seas turn into mulberry fields. It wasn't until the birth of the Holy Court that beings finally had the chance to set foot in outer heaven. I inherited the legacy of Heaven Sect and took on its name. Heaven Sect can only be transmitted singularly, and I want to take you as my disciple, to make you the next Heaven Sect. By the end of this statement, the sound of the wind in the forest abruptly stopped, and the flora ceased their swaying. Guan widened his eyes and asked incredulously, "Me? Can I really do it? I'm just a mediocre talent." "What does talent matter? Heaven's sect has its own legacy that can help you break free from your shackles. You have been recognized by the immortal king crown. There must be something extraordinary about you, either an ancient treasure body or your soul harboring greater power. The Tao patterns on your forehead are the best proof," Heaven's sect stated, his eyes blazing as he gazed at Guan. Guan hesitated. "But I don't understand what being Heaven's sect entails. What are your ideals?" "Heaven's sect is about complying with the heavenly Tao. What you need to do is to follow the heavenly Tao. As long as you adhere to this, you will constantly surpass your limits and might even achieve immortality. If immortality is attainable, why do you want to pass it on to me?" "Because I have regrets and no longer wish to comply with the heavenly Tao." These words from Heaven's sect only added to Guan's confusion. "Are you trying to trap me, or just deceive me?" Seeing through Guan's doubts, Heaven's sect looked up at the bright moon and explained, "I have lived for 780,000 years. In my life, every choice made was in compliance with the heavenly Tao. For the heavenly Tao, I have forsaken my family and dear friends. I have attained immortality and earned a revered holy name. But over time, I also grew regretful. I no longer yearn for immortality, but you probably still desire it." After hearing this, Guan's first thought was to pass on the legacy to those close to him. Heaven's sect continued, "My time is limited. After this heavenly list conference concludes, I will relinquish the position of Heaven's sect. You have no choice, but you need to spend the remaining time adjusting your Daoist heart." With that, he vanished into the forest. Guan frowned, staying in his spot. "Don't tell anyone else, lest you reveal the fate and bring misfortune upon them." Muttering to himself, Guan scoffed internally, but he indeed felt a mysterious and familiar aura from Heaven's sect, similar to the light layer enveloping the great heavenly spirit land. Could the heavenly Tao really exist? Guan pondered a while in his place before finally leaving. In the following days, several great cultivators made their names known at the Heavenly List Conference, with the most dominant being Heaven's sect, who self-proclaimed the title. Besides that, nobody knew much about his origins. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord also performed strongly, but he lacked the aura of being the foremost. Time flew swiftly. 2 months passed rapidly, and the Heavenly List Conference continued. During this time, Supreme Sect was as lively as a festival every day. On this day, sensing something while reading under a tree, Xianxia looked up and saw an old man with white hair approaching from the valley entrance. "HM? That presence?" Xianxia frowned thoughtfully. Heaven's sect felt his gaze and glanced at him. Their eyes met, and in an instant, Xianxia felt an immense terror, instinctively bowing his head. Heaven's sect withdrew his gaze and proceeded forward. His eyes swept Medicine Valley and soon locked onto Yang Jian, who was interacting with a disciple. Yang Jian, sensing something, turned his head and instinctively frowned when he saw Heaven's sect. This newcomer was no ordinary figure. Yang Jian, already at the void-crossing realm, had sharper senses than others at his level. From the first glance at Heaven's sect, he knew he was no match for the other. He wasn't panicked, for his master was still within Medicine Valley. Heaven's sect approached Yang Jian, with Xianxia watching him closely, debating whether to intervene. "Mystic Gang Dominator Body, have you felt the thickness of your soul?" Heaven's sect's first question startled Yang Jian. Yang Jian instinctively looked around. "The others can't hear our conversation, nor can they see me, except for that heavenly demon from Bitter Sea Buddha sect, whom I intentionally allowed to see," Heaven's sect stated emotionlessly. The term, heavenly demon, alarmed Xianxia, who immediately bowed his head. Yang Jian, however, was not distracted by the mention of the heavenly demon. Suppressing his nervousness, he asked, "What exactly do you want?" Heaven's sect raised his right hand, revealing a golden jade stone in his palm, and said, "This object is for you. Just crush it, and you will recall past life memories, regaining your true identity. You have reincarnated 100 times. It's rare for someone to help you awaken the Mystic Gang Dominator Body. You might not get such a chance in future reincarnations. Yang Jian instinctively caught the golden jade stone, pressing further. Who are you really? What do you want? We fought side by side before. I was severely injured, and you perished along with your path. I would never harm you. Once you awaken your past memories, I will appear, said Heaven Sect before turning to leave. Yang Jian looked at the golden jade stone in his hand, his mind in turmoil. Past life? Having read Investiture of the Gods and Journey to the West, he naturally believed in reincarnation, but now that it directly affected him, he couldn't help but feel unsettled. He took a deep breath, looked up, and saw Heaven Sect heading towards his master's attic. He wondered if his master had noticed this person's approach. Previously, he believed his master was invincible, but Heaven Sect's methods were beyond his comprehension. Except for him and Xianxia, no one in the valley could see his movements. What kind of divine skill was this? Yang Jian couldn't understand, and his wariness of Heaven Sect piqued. He hesitated whether to warn his master, fearing he might ruin his master's plans if he had already noticed. After considering, he used his divine sense to follow. When his divine sense reached the attic, Guan showed no reaction, which reassured him, and he withdrew his divine sense. Heaven Sect reached the attic. Stepping into the first-floor room, he muttered to himself, "Reincarnation Path Emperor? Great karmic bonds, untouchable. I didn't expect this place to have so many significant karmic bonds. Could Sword Venerable Fudao be nearby?" He then ascended the stairs. Walking through the door, Heaven Sect appeared before Guan, who was at his desk, and then revealed his true form. His gaze fell on the supreme secret records in Guan's hand. A flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. He suddenly regretted choosing Guan. But by now, he had no other options. Ahem, Heaven Sect feigned a cough, causing Guan to instinctively look up, and then he stood up abruptly as though he had seen a ghost. "You? How did you appear?" Guan asked fearfully. Heaven Sect replied irritably, "You are soon to be the next Heaven Sect, destined to wield the heavenly will. Stop reading books that corrupt the mind." Guan closed the supreme secret records, explaining, "This book is different. Enough." Heaven Sect cut him off, his gaze returning to the Immortal King Crown. "You roam around wearing the Immortal King Crown all day, aren't you afraid of trouble? Not everyone is like me, without greed for Immortal Path supreme treasures, especially since the Immortal King Crown is special, being one of the rare treasures not bound by the chi fortune of the Holy Court." "The Holy Court manipulates? What do you mean?" Guan asked, puzzled. Considering that nearly all Immortal Path supreme treasures were presented by the Holy Court to help various congregations better manage the populace, Guan had obtained the Seven Stars Mirror from the Seven Stars Spirit Realm, and the Star Sea congregations also had their own supreme treasure. Yet almost no one attempted to steal their supreme treasures, indicating that some powerful force was balancing the greed of the great powers. Heaven Sect explained, "The vast majority of supreme treasures in the world are dispatched by the Holy Court, aiding the various sects in governing the populace. Of course, some treasures aren't under their control, and your Immortal King Crown is one such example. The Holy Court can trace all supreme treasures linked to chi fortune, which is why they are more wary of those they can't control. If someone discovers your Immortal King Crown, you're in major trouble, and even the chi fortune of Heaven Sect can't protect you." Guan thought, "I have another supreme treasure in my possession, and you haven't recognized it either." Chapter 326, Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court. Heaven Sect lectured Guan at length, telling him how to act in the future and what pitfalls to avoid, as if imparting his last words. Despite thinking to himself, "I, a divine thought true immortal, will not acknowledge you as my master," Guan considered retaining Heaven Sect's legacy since Heaven Sect was determined to abdicate his position and had decided to search for a successor on his behalf. Before leaving, Heaven Sect said, "Though there are many secrets about you that puzzle me, I have no desire to understand them anymore. Your disciple named Yang Jian, let him leave when he wishes to, do not stop him, for he will bring you great trouble." Guan nodded, planning to dismiss him first. Heaven Sect raised his right hand, A chi sphere formed in his palm and he threw it at Guan. With no time to dodge, Guan could only watch as the chi sphere entered his body, causing him to stiffen. Heaven's Sect looked at Guan, a smile appearing as he said, "It's a pity I didn't formally accept you as my disciple. It's better this way to avoid my karma affecting you." With that, he turned and left, his figure passing directly through the door. Feeling his presence disappear, the color of panic finally vanished from Guan's face. "Accept me as a disciple? Sorry, I am more afraid of getting involved in your karma." Guan touched his chest, extracting the chi sphere. He could feel the powerful force inside, no weaker than Heaven's Sect's, and its chi fortune was something he currently couldn't fathom. Precisely because of this, he couldn't merge with the chi sphere. Let's call it Heaven's Sect's chi fortune. Guan took out the 7 stars mirror and channeled the Heaven's Sect's chi fortune into it. When he first obtained the 7 stars mirror, Guan had erased all the chi fortune, karma, and related restriction inside it. He treated not only Immortal Path Supreme treasures with such thoroughness but also any magic artifact. To avoid any accidents, he checked it again. Once sure there were no issues, he tucked the 7 stars mirror into his pocket and then sat down to continue reading. The grand ranking competition was still ongoing. As of today, the combatants were all immortal beings, unlike Leah who relied on Immortal Path Supreme treasures from lower realms. Thus each combat was a testament to cultivation levels. When Heaven's Sect broke into the top 10, he announced his withdrawal from the competition and then left. His departure destined to leave a lingering question in the grand ranking competition. No matter who won first place, they could not be considered the true victor of the competition in the minds of the people below. Heaven's Sect was the most dominant presence in this grand ranking competition, unequivocally. Guan and Yang Jian tacitly did not mention Heaven's Sect and continued their cultivation as usual. Guan trained Yang Jian, not hoping he would serve him for life. When he saw through the karma of Yang Jian's past life, he was already prepared to let Yang Jian go. He even looked forward to seeing what impact Yang Jian would make on the world after he emerged magnificently. By the end of summer, the grand ranking competition concluded, and Nine-Fingered Divine Lord representing the Supreme Sect won the first-place seat. Carefree primordial immortal Zhang Xianwang from the Immortal Spirit Dynasty did not participate. He lingered in the Supreme Sect, searching for Sword Venerable Fudao. Clearly wary of Holy Court, he acted very cautiously and dared not reveal his identity. After the grand ranking competition ended, Zhang Xianwang still did not leave. Until one night in early autumn. Zhang Xianwang was reading in his own room, with more than a dozen books about Sword Venerable Fudao spread out on the table. A cold breeze stirred the oil lamp on the table. Zhang Xianwang's eyes flickered, instinctively looking to the side. Immediately after, his pupils contracted sharply as he abruptly stood up. He saw a figure shrouded in purple demonic chi, his face's shock quickly turning to joy. The newcomer was Guan. His 9 extremes yin-yang body had advanced to the extreme path transforming form, allowing him to change into various forms, and even without transformation, he could avoid karma calculation by using the extreme path transforming form. However, the image of Sword Venerable Fudao was too deeply ingrained, and he had to meet people in this guise. "Why are you looking for me?" Guan spoke, his voice hoarse, prompting Zhang Xianwang to imagine a face weathered by the vicissitudes of life. Zhang Xianwang promptly bowed, then introduced himself. He came from the Immortal Dynasty, sent by the master of the Immortal Dynasty, Yang Xian Emperor, to request Sword Venerable Fudao to take action on a matter. He did not immediately mention what it was but instead asked Guan's impression of the Holy Court. It upholds the great righteousness of protecting the mortals, yet shows disdain for mortal spirits with its pride. It has its good and bad sides. Are the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court at odds? Guan asked nonchalantly. Zhang Xianwang took a deep breath and said, "It's not that we are at odds with the Holy Court, but rather that the Holy Court has always wanted to eliminate us, to make the great heavenly spirit land entirely theirs. The master of Holy Court, Xianxia, comes from outer heaven and established the Holy Court in this land. The top hierarchy of the Holy Court mostly shares a similar origin with him, while the Immortal dynasty is a gathering of native immortal beings from the great heavenly spirit land, evolving over generations to form the Immortal dynasty. This was the first Guwen had heard of such matters. If that's the case, wouldn't I who don't belong to the Immortal dynasty be deemed an enemy? Guwen asked. It was important to consider right and wrong based on one's stance. If the stances were different, he didn't understand why the Immortal dynasty would still seek him out. Zhang Xianwang hurriedly explained, "It's not just the Immortal dynasty that belongs to native beings of the great heavenly spirit land. All beings below heaven are so. It's just that the current beings only recognize the Holy Court." "So, what then? You guys wouldn't want me to go against Holy Court, right?" Guwen countered. "Senior, you refuse to accept chi fortune and status, and you conceal your real identity. The only thing you could fear is the Holy Court. If you cooperate with the Immortal dynasty, we will fulfill any needs you have. However, before that, we hope you can infiltrate Holy Court to rescue someone for us, someone who is not from the Immortal dynasty but has been beneficial to us," Zhang Xianwang earnestly said. He was about to introduce this person when Guwen suddenly interrupted, "No need to continue, I refuse. It does not matter who rules the world, nor do I wish to get involved in your grievances. If that's the matter, then please leave." He'd have to be full to do the Immortal dynasty's bidding. Not to mention whether Zhang Xianwang's words were true, even if they were, he wouldn't agree. Currently, only the great Nether Saint King from Holy Court bore a grudge against him. He had no reason to position himself against Holy Court. Moreover, the Immortal dynasty clearly felt inferior and thought they couldn't overcome Holy Court. He had no desire to be their pawn. "Senior," Zhang Xianwang still wanted to persuade, but a terrifying force enveloped him, making him fall silent and tremble. This carefree primordial immortal appeared quite embarrassed now. "Leave the supreme sect. Do not disturb my secluded cultivation. I do not wish to be an enemy of any force, but if someone forces me, I won't hesitate to visit their Daoist tradition." Before his words fully faded, Guwen disappeared from the spot, leaving Zhang Xianwang in the room, his face changing expressions. He originally thought Sword Venerable Fudao was concealing his name because he feared Holy Court. He didn't expect that what Sword Venerable Fudao feared was the entire world. Are there really such ascetic cultivators in the world with such a temperament? Meanwhile, Guwen returned to the 8 scenic caves. Had he not been favorably impressed by Zhang Xianwang, Guwen wouldn't have met him at all. Had Zhang persisted unreasoningly and kept pushing, Guwen wouldn't hesitate to annihilate him. He continued his artifact refining, which had been delayed for several months due to the grand ranking competition. Now he needed to pick it back up. His goal was to create his own Immortal Path Supreme Treasure when he reached the 9th level of Immortal. What kind of Immortal Path Supreme Treasure would be worthy of him? He constantly pondered this question. As dawn broke, Guwen felt Zhang Xianwang's presence departing, bringing a smile to his face. He hoped Zhang Xianwang could convey the signal that Guwen had released to the Immortal dynasty. He didn't want further conflicts with the Immortal dynasty. Standing up, he tidied up before leaving the 8 scenic caves. After the grand ranking competition ended, new disciple numbers in the Supreme Sect surged, even attracting high cultivation level cultivators to join. The Supreme Sect once again began expanding the sect. It recruited many servant disciples to labor, offering generous compensation. Gu's Third Medicine Valley remained unaffected because he offered even higher treatment to the servant disciples. 10 years passed, and the number of disciples in Third Medicine Valley broke 2,000. This year, the Supreme Sect agreed to expand Third Medicine Valley. Guwen stood on a mountaintop, watching his busy disciples, his face filled with a smile. The expansion of Medicine Valley helped increase his lifespan income. Naturally, his mood was excellent. A figure approached from behind him. It was Yang Jian. Yang Jian had grown more composed and his brow bore a vigorous look. "Master," Yang Jian approached Guwen and respectfully bowed. Guwen did not turn around but gazed into the distance, asking, "Have you decided?" Taking a deep breath, Yang Jian replied, "I have decided. I carry too much karma. First it was Impermanence Tian, and now Heaven Sect. As my cultivation level continues to rise, the problems will only increase in the future. I don't want to cause trouble for you and Medicine Valley. Also, I wish to venture out alone to cultivate my heart and seek Tao. Guwen turned around, looked at him, and softly laughed. You truly have grown up. Go then, it's time for you to be on your own. Hearing Guwen consenting, Yang Jian sighed with relief, his face showing happiness as he solemnly nodded. Leave today and don't say goodbye to anyone else. Guwen waved his hand. Stunned, Yang Jian could only nod. As he turned to leave, he couldn't help but ask, Master, who exactly is my senior brother? You've already chosen another path, don't ask further. After leaving Third Medicine Valley, do not mention my name or reveal my existence, or else. Guwen's back faced Yang Jian as he spoke in a calm tone. He didn't complete his sentence, but he believed Yang Jian understood. Yang Jian took a deep breath, knelt again, and bowed deeply to Guwen. Then Yang Jian left. Guwen watched the sky, his gaze profound. He was not afraid of Yang Jian exposing him. Currently, as Sword Venerable, he displayed the cultivation level of Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma. Who could guess his cultivation had reached Divine Thought True Immortal? Moreover, Yang Jian himself had a significant background. It was better that he left to follow his own path. The child has grown up and ultimately wants to soar high. Guwen sighed, then shook his head with a wry smile, turning to walk down the mountain. When he reached the base, he saw an Exen chasing the white spirit rat. The corners of his mouth curved upwards. At least this disciple was still here. Now that Yang Jian had left, it was time to focus on training an Exen. Although Nzin's talents were ordinary, if he diligently cultivated, he might surpass An Hao and Yang Jian, for Guwen himself was growing at a much faster rate. Chapter 327. Nzin's surprise. Late at night, an Exen knocked on Guwen's room door, and with a wave of his sleeve, the door opened directly. An Exen stepped inside and closed the door behind her. She approached Guwen's desk, curiously looking at her master. Guwen seldom called for her at this time alone, and she couldn't help but be curious. Guwen caught the disrupted cultivation aura from downstairs and spoke. Yang Jian has left to gain experience. How about I teach you cultivation techniques myself from now on? An Exen was taken aback and asked, Haven't you always been teaching me? Guwen chuckled. Previously, I only assisted you in energy absorption, but now I will truly help you become stronger. After hearing this, an Exen smiled brightly. If Master is willing to teach, naturally I have no objections, as long as you don't despise me for my lack of insight. Don't worry. Guwen offered reassurance, then began to talk about affairs within Medicine Valley. The cultivation aura downstairs returned to normal and remained undisturbed throughout. After chit-chatting for a while, Guwen let an Exen leave. Then he left the Third Medicine Valley, heading towards Mystic Valley. Arriving in Mystic Valley, he stepped into the Nianchu cave, preparing to spend the night with Tian Yaoer and her 3 demons. In a bright and magnificent hall, rows of figures stood, forming 4 long lines, neat and orderly, with the 2 middle rows spaced wide apart to create a broad aisle. A rainbow light flew into the hall, swiftly condensing into the form of Zhang Xianwang. Zhang Xianwang quickly strode forward, reaching the steps, where he bowed in greeting and looked up to see a towering figure seated on a golden throne, the back of which was made of overlapping golden weapons, like an unfurled fan. The towering figure donned a red dragon robe and a dragon crown with hanging beads, surrounded by whirling blood-colored dragon chi, as if encircled by dragons. His visage was majestic, eyes seemingly containing a sea of stars, piercing and profound. This person was none other than the ruler of the Immortal dynasty, the Yang Xian Emperor. After Zhang Xianwang recounted his mission's details, the hall erupted with discussion among the immortal spirits. This sword venerable Fudao dares to show no respect to us, arrogant. He indeed has that right, after all, he dared to refuse the divine position offered by the Holy Court. It seems he is one of those ascetics who wishes to stay away from conflicts. The world is complex, and one can't simply hide whenever they wish. The Holy Court will certainly be suspicious of him. Now that the holy minister dominates the court, we need not lift a finger. He alone can provoke sword venerable Fu Dao into action, considering that the great Nether Saint King is his lackey. The blood prison great saint's eyes widened, shocked. He had not given it much thought when Guan asked Zhuo Yijian to seek path enlightenment, as Zhuo Yijian already had remarkable achievement in the sword Dao. But an Xen was different. She was just an inexperienced girl, lacking the demeanor and potential of a powerful being. Could someone so ordinary really be transformed? The blood prison great saint suddenly felt that Yang Jian's current fate was perhaps truly shaped by his master's defiance of the heavens. His heart ignited with excitement. How could one not achieve greatness following such an entity? If Yang Jian comes back and sees an Xen surpassing him, that would be interesting. The blood prison great saint entertained this thought, suddenly feeling that Guan might actually have nurtured an Xen intensively for this very reason. Poor Yang Jian. Nevertheless, it proved that the blood prison great saint's choice was correct, and his mood became even more joyful. Unbeknownst to Guan, the blood prison great saint had conjured up so much in his mind. While he appeared to be reading, he was actually watching over Yang Jian as he ventured to the sea. He saw Heaven's sect tracking Yang Jian, and apart from them, no one else was watching him, which meant that the great Nether Saint King had not yet realized Yang Jian's identity. This indicated that no trouble would come his way for the time being. After a while, Gu and his divine sense traveled to outer heaven, where a carefree primordial immortal was engaged in combat. Quite a rare sight. The adversaries were clearly mortal enemies, striking fiercely, shaking the void. Gu sensed many great cultivators secretly watching the battle, with various divine senses weaving through each other, making him muse that great heaven and earth was indeed full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. As evening approached, Gu finally withdrew the divine sense that had been focused on an Xen, bringing her back to awareness. An Xen slowly opened her eyes to find two new cultivation techniques in her mind: heaven and earth primordial skill and all things form and energy art. Though these techniques were already enhanced by Guan, they were enough for an Xen to ponder for a lifetime. Heaven and earth primordial skill was the foundation of her cultivation, while all things form and energy art could conceal her cultivation level, both complementing the primordial reincarnation skill. Once she regained her composure, a look of shock flashed across her face. So profound. Instinctively, an Xen looked towards Guan, her eyes filled with surprise, confusion, unease, and joy. She cautiously asked, "Master, was it because of you last time too?" Guan, with a book in hand, nodded lightly. "How does it feel?" "Good, but..." An Xen stopped mid-sentence, hesitant to ask a lingering question, afraid of offending Guan. How could Master be so powerful? Could Master be an immortal? Guan calmly said, "From now on, I will teach you cultivation in private, and you mustn't tell anyone." For some reason, upon hearing these words, Anzin's heart quivered. It sounded so familiar. A figure from deep within her memory emerged, coincidentally overlapping with Guan at this moment. Could it be impossible? Wasn't Master just a little over 300 years old? How could he be so formidable? Guan put away his book, looking at an Xen. "The identity of Supreme Sex Guan is indeed my disguise." "You guessed it right, I am him. From the very beginning, you've only had me as your master." With these words, an Xen immediately stood up, her eyes welling up and her body trembling uncontrollably. "Master." Overwhelmed by emotions, an Xen burst into Guan's arms and began to sob uncontrollably. Guan, helpless, said, "Why are you crying? You're making it seem like we haven't seen each other in ages, and I haven't mistreated you these years, have I?" An Xen buried her head in his chest, sobbing, "I haven't been mistreated. I never expected that, after all these years, what I've wanted most is actually happening. I'm so foolish. How could there be two people in this world who are so good to me? Master, I've missed you so much." The blood prison great saint was utterly confused. Weren't these two just master and disciple? Why the emotional reunion? Guan patted Anzin's back. "Let go of your master, you're grown up now. Don't let others see this. An Xen released Guan and then knelt on the ground to wipe her tears, her face radiating with a smile. So, Master, you tricked us. If my senior brother knew you were our master, he would probably be devastated. Wait, does that mean you knew him because you were looking out for him back then? An Xian asked wide-eyed, her shift from formality to familiarity not out of disrespect, but because the master who saved her and led her on the immortal cultivation path was like a father to her. In front of her father, she had no apprehensions. Guan said, "You could say that. However, our relationship should stay as it appears on the surface, and don't tell your senior brother." An Xian immediately nodded, her eyes still red, but now she was excited. Suddenly, she glanced at the blood prison great saint, hesitated, and said, "Master, but he heard us." The blood prison great saint bristled. "What do you mean, behind my back? I am the master's most trusted mount, even closer than you disciples." Guan smiled. "Don't underestimate him. Bull Demon King, feel free to share your story with her." With that, the blood prison great saint stood tall, filled with pride, and began to reveal his true identity. Sender, Ayana realm. Just those two aspects were enough to shock an Exen, her mouth agape, and as for the long list of titles that followed, she had already tuned out. She turned back to Guan and asked, "Master, does that mean Yang Jian is really my junior brother? What is his cultivation level now?" Chapter 328. Master, what realm are you exactly? He has already reached the void-crossing realm in terms of cultivation level, Guan replied offhandedly, as if he was talking about a trivial matter of no importance. An Xen was shocked once again, her mouth agape and hands involuntarily covering her face, seemingly unable to accept this reality. She and Anhao had started cultivating on the same day and knew all too well how extraordinary Anhao's pace of cultivation was. Precisely because of this, she was very clear that Yang Jian's progress was no less sensational than Anhao's. She had watched Yang Jian enter the valley, watched him grow up. In the beginning, how mediocre Yang Jian had been, yet he had grown so rapidly right under her nose. It was simply outrageous. Suddenly, an Xen didn't know what to say. Guan looked at her and smiled. "Keep cultivating well, strive to surpass those who came before you." An Xen hesitated, "But my talent." After all, she had trained under Guan and, seeing the vast gap between her and Anhao, her confidence had long since been worn away. What was in the past was in the past. Had I not let you settle in, how could you have today's temperament? Do you think your senior brother could have had it all smooth sailing? I've intervened for him countless times over the years. He always loves to cause me trouble, Guan huffed. An Xian was astonished. The master had helped the senior brother before? Why hadn't the senior brother mentioned it? Damn it, he actually kept it hidden from me. An Xen gritted her teeth. She looked at Guan and asked, "Then, do I have a chance to surpass my senior brother?" Guan spoke earnestly. "That depends on how much determination you are willing to put forth. No one is predestined to be stronger than another." These words completely ignited Nzin's aspirations, as if flames were blazing in her eyes. Blood Prison Great Saint was somewhat displeased. "I haven't finished bragging yet." After returning to Third Medicine Valley, an Xine was in an exceptionally good mood, wandering around and greeting everyone she saw. For this senior disciple of the Medicine Valley, all the disciples held great respect. Passing by, Chuanyue asked with a cheerful smile, "Senior sister, why are you so happy?" An Xen replied with a smile, "Because the moonlight is beautiful tonight." Chuanyue looked puzzled, but an Xen did not explain, instead brushing past him. On the other side, in a loft, Guan picked up Green Hero Travelogue and had only been reading for a short while when Ji Xiaoyu came up the stairs and entered the room. "Where did you two go during the day?" Ji Xiaoyu stared at Guan and asked. Guan answered, "We went out for cultivation." "Really? What can you teach her?" "Well, I managed to teach Yang Jian, didn't I? Just wait, maybe he'll make a name for himself and shake the world someday." Ji Xiaoyu raised an eyebrow. After a moment of silence, she asked, "You wouldn't happen to know Sword Venerable Fu Dao, would you?" Gu and his face changed dramatically. and he exclaimed with shock, "How did you know?" "Really? Truth be told, I am actually a disciple of Sword Venerable Fudao." "Heh? What? You don't believe me?" "Okay then, I am Sword Venerable Fudao." Ji Xiaoyu rolled her eyes at Guan and said, "You're always talking nonsense. Every time I ask about your secrets, you always dodge the question, yet I've shared everything with you." At this point, her tone carried a hint of melancholy. Guan replied helplessly, "My dear sister, I do want to know. Every time you just tell me outright, I listen with trepidation, fearing that your enemy from a former life will come knocking at our door. It's not death I fear, but if the enemy tortures me severely, even if I confess, they might not believe me." As he spoke, Guan rambled on, causing Ji Xiaoyu to show a look of remorse. From Gu An's perspective, it indeed seemed like a lot of pressure. After Guan finished speaking, Ji Xiaoyu asked, "Should I stop telling you from now on?" "Really? False. I'm still going to tell you. You only live once. I speak to you not because I want to talk about these things." Having said that, Ji Xiaoyu turned and left, leaving behind her solitary silhouette. Guan laughed to himself. This girl's nature was indeed amusing. Then, he picked up the Green Hero travelogue from the table and continued reading. Xianxia hadn't published a new book recently, which had allowed some laziness to set in, causing Guan some dissatisfaction. Find a moment to tap him on the shoulder? Forget it, that's beneath my dignity. Having Shunjun come back to the Jianghu wouldn't be bad either. She has the talent to surpass Xianxia. High up under the blue sky, above the white clouds, Guan rode the blood prison great saint with an Exan standing beside him. An Exan, dressed all in white and wearing a white jade mask, was at that moment caressing her mask. "Master, where are we going?" An Exan turned her head and asked, feeling a powerful force whisking her away, immense and vast. "To another branch of your master's sect," Guan replied. Upon hearing this, an Exan immediately became excited and asked, "Master, what realm are you really in? Even Senior Nine Fingers and the others can't see through your disguise." "I am slightly higher in cultivation level than the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, Wuxia and Xianxia," Guan answered ambiguously. Seeing that he was unwilling to reveal more, an Exan didn't press the matter and started to get curious about their destination. A gust of sea breeze blew from the front, prompting an Exan to turn her head. Immediately, her complexion changed drastically. One by one, towering and majestic peaks entered her vision, shocking her very eyes. Guan glanced at her, feeling a sense of emotion. Since they had recognized each other, an Exan seemed to have become a different person, lively as if returning to her youthful days. This indicated that she truly saw Guan as family. With parents present, a child can afford to be willful. Without parents to accompany, one must learn to behave properly. An Exan was like this, which made Guan quite happy. After all, he had watched an Exan grow up, and she had been with him for so many years. In his heart, wasn't an Exan like a daughter? "Look at you, acting like you've never seen anything. This is Mortal World Peak, and the master here is the Peak Master of Dingtan Peak." Blood Prison Great Saint said proudly, as if he himself were the Peak Master of Dingtian Peak. An Exan exclaimed in astonishment, "Dingtian Peak? I've heard of it. Senior Lu came to attend the Millennial Peak Conference before. So that's how it is, no wonder. Master, if Senior Lu knew it was you taking care of her in secret, with her affection for you, she would probably wish to pledge herself to you right there and then." Guan's handsome face turned red, and he fake coughed, saying, "What nonsense are you spouting? How could a girl speak such words? Your master would never become Daoist friends with her." "Just so, she isn't worthy?" Blood Prison Great Saint chimed in, feeling annoyed with Lu Lingjun, also an ascender, ever since she had called him a stupid cow. An Exan giggled behind her hand and said, "I finally understand why the master refuses to accept those female companions. Indeed, there's no need. They would only drag you down." She admired Guan greatly. The master truly gave without expecting anything in return. What woman could resist his charisma? And who would have thought that Sword Venerable Fudao would be a valley master at the Supreme Sect? Such a waste of talent. The master really has patience. An Exen silently vowed to herself to become a great cultivator like her master, hidden amidst the mortal coil, watching over the swirling winds of the world with a smile. If she could truly surpass her senior brother and junior brothers, she would also conceal her cultivation level, watching the two of them vie against each other with a smile. Just by thinking about it, an Exian felt a surge of excitement. At that moment, a vast aura descended, dispersing the sea of clouds and fluttering in Xin's long hair and gown. She looked up, and her eyes instinctively widened. There before her was a green mountain reflection stretching across the sky, larger than all the massive peaks in front of them. Guwen remained expressionless. His reason for coming today was for this very item. It was an Immortal Path supreme treasure belonging to Mortal World Peak. Chapter 329. Fu Shenxiu, Qingtian Peak. When the azure mountain shadows hung suspended in the sky, disciples from various peaks flew out, looking up at this magnificent scene. Guwen did not stop, taking Blood Prison Great Saint and an Exen toward Dingtian Peak. An Exen, feeling the aura of the mountains and cultivators along the way, was secretly astonished, realizing that Mortal World Peak truly was unfathomable, seeing that Senior Lu hadn't spoken falsely. The oppressive force of the azure mountain shadows lingered for a long time, enveloping the entire domain of Mortal World Peak, prompting discussions among the disciples from all peaks. Upon reaching Dingtian Peak, Guwen flew toward the mountaintop. Only then did an Exen truly feel the immense size and height of these mountains. Thinking that such a vast mountain belonged to her master, and Xin's gaze toward Guwen was filled with admiration. Soon, they arrived at the top of the mountain, and as soon as they landed, Zhu Xinglan, the leading disciple of Dingtian Peak, appeared and came forward to greet Guwen with a salute. "What's the situation?" Guwen asked. Zhu Xinglan replied, "Its main peak's Fu Shenxiu subduing an Immortal Path supreme treasure. He is the future master of the main peak and the disciple with the strongest talent in 1,000,000 years in Mortal World Peak." There was a complex tone in his voice when he mentioned Fu Shenxiu. Guwen looked up at the azure mountain shadow in the sky and laughed. That's quite a commotion. For such a carefree primordial immortal to subdue an Immortal Path supreme treasure, it seemed to be quite strenuous. It seemed that this Immortal Path supreme treasure was somewhat special. Zhu Xinglan answered, "This Immortal Path supreme treasure was found beyond outer heaven by the Peak Master. Without the suppression of Qi fortune from the Holy Court, truly subduing its immortal spirit would raise quite a ruckus, and there have been those who failed before." Guwen nodded and then asked about Dingtian Peak's recent situation, learning that there was nothing requiring his intervention. Only then did Guwen start walking toward the medicine garden. An Exian and Blood Prison Great Saint followed behind him, with Zhu Xinglan accompanying them, yet his gaze occasionally shifted toward the sky, admiring the vast azure mountain shadow. Who wouldn't want to possess an Immortal Path supreme treasure? It's just that their numbers were limited, and it wasn't something one could have just by wishing for it. While picking medicinal herbs, Guwen introduced them to an Exen. The majority of the medicinal herbs here were unheard of by an Exen, so she listened intently and wasn't distracted by the phenomenon in the sky. Zhu Xinglan was inwardly curious about the origins of this girl, feeling that their master treated her differently compared to others. And Xin's mask, crafted by Guwen, was inscrutable for Zhu Xinglan, who was at the 9th layer of Wandering Immortal Realm, and he didn't dare probe with his divine sense. An hour later, the vast oppressive force enveloping Mortal World Peak began to dissolve, and the azure mountain shadow in the sky remained, even becoming more detailed, revealing trees that swayed with the wind, as if they were truly real. "You can go on with your duties, there's no need to follow us." Guwen, just stepping out from a section of the medicine garden, turned his head and spoke to Zhu Xinglan, who immediately saluted and then disappeared into thin air. Attracted by the sudden disappearance, an Exen looked at Guwen and asked, "Master, what's his cultivation level?" Guwen casually replied, "Wandering Immortal Realm, 9 layers." And Xin's pupils, hidden beneath the mask, involuntarily widened. She had heard of Wandering Immortals. The 9-fingered Divine Lord who took first place in the Heavenly Ranking Tournament was a Wandering Immortal. To reach the 9th layer of wandering immortal realm, didn't that mean the person just now might be even stronger than the 9-fingered divine lord? Feeling the pressure, an Exen thought of the multitude of disciples at Dingtan Peak, each seemingly an immortal, commanding such formidable power. How could she not feel the pressure, when her master was training her with such focus? At the very least, she couldn't disappoint her master. Master and disciple walked and chatted along the mountain path, with Blood Prison Great Saint trailing behind. As the sea breeze blew and they looked out over the entire world, they seemed so insignificant. The azure mountain shadow in the sky began to scatter, and not long after, the sky returned to its original state, resplendently blue. Master, if you compared that immortal path supreme treasure to Martial Uncle Li Yas' divine exotic city, which would be stronger? An Exian couldn't help but ask. The strength of divine exotic city left a deep impression on her when Leah participated in the heavenly ranking tournament. The strength of an immortal path supreme treasure is related to the user's cultivation level. Leah is not yet able to fully unleash divine exotic city's power, Guan answered. The mightiest feature of an immortal path supreme treasure is its eternal indestructibility. Currently, there are many immortal path supreme treasures in the world, all passed down from generation to generation, each symbolizing the lifetime of a 9 heavens of immortal path being. After hearing this, an Exen became even more curious about immortal path supreme treasure. Guan brought her here today to broaden her horizons, to understand the world structure, and to comprehend what an immortal path supreme treasure is. What's that? Blood Prison Great Saint suddenly spoke up, and an Exen turned her head to look, seeing a streak of azure light racing from the distant horizon of the sea, stirring up huge waves. A smile appeared on Guan's face. He thought to himself, as expected. The immortal spirit of that immortal path supreme treasure was not simple, which was also the reason Guan came to watch the excitement today. An immortal path supreme treasure from beyond outer heaven implied there was a scheme behind it. That treasure heading straight for Dingtian Peak was probably related to the demon fetus within. As the azure light drew closer, an Exen and Blood Prison Great Saint's expressions drastically changed, a feeling of indescribable panic born in their hearts. This panic emerged but vanished in an instant because Guan stepped forward. An Exen and Blood Prison Great Saint subconsciously looked toward Guan. Guan raised his hand to grasp, then clenched his fist, and the distant azure light immediately disappeared. An Exen and Blood Prison Great Saint turned to look but could no longer see the azure light. It was as if the previous sight was just an illusion. Both looked toward Guan's outstretched hand. Unfortunately, Guan's fist remained closed, shielding from their view whatever lay within his palm. A figure descended from the sky and landed at the edge of a cliff, maintaining a distance of 10 steps from Guan. He frowned as he looked at Guan. Fu Xinxiu, carefree primordial immortal realm. 5 layers 168487/75000/250000. Seeing the other's lifespan, Guan felt he indeed deserved the reputation of the #1 talent of mortal world peak. In the future, he might even surpass the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Fu Xinxiu asked, could it be Senior Meng Lang? Meng Lang? And Zin's gaze turned curious. Guan, on the other hand, laughed and said, this treasure headed straight for my Dingtan Peak. Could it be considered fated for me? Fu Xianxia's face drastically changed. After all his troubles, was the treasure taken by someone else? Although he did not attend the Millennium Summit, how could Fu Xinxiu not know that a great cultivator had been added to mortal world peak? One capable of eradicating the elder of Mo Hen, such a great power was definitely beyond his contend. Moreover, the fact that the other party could easily seize the treasure demonstrated a vast gap between them. For a moment, Fu Xinxiu was unsure what to do. His master, Daoist Lord Yongyan, had instructed him to try his best to recruit Meng Lang. That was an immortal path supreme treasure. Furthermore, one with intact restrictions, uncontrolled by the Holy Court, an immortal path supreme treasure. Senior. Fu Xinxiu gritted his teeth, wanting to test Guan's attitude. Guan suddenly opened his hand, revealing a tiny azure mountain that glistened faintly with light within his palm. Upon seeing the mountain, Fu Shengxia's gaze was fixed and could not be moved. An Xian and blood prison great saint, although unclear about the newcomer's realm, could tell that his nature and temperament were extraordinary. It was her first time seeing her master so assertive. And of course, Sword Venerable Fu Dao had always been domineering in his actions. Guwen was just gentle toward cultivators of lower realms. Blood Prison Great Saint stared intently at Qingtian Peak in Guwen's hand, suddenly feeling that he too might one day possess such a treasure. As long as he performed well. Guwen proceeded to walk toward the top of the mountain, while he used his divine thought to probe Qingtian Peak in his hand. Qingtian Peak had already fostered an immortal spirit, apparently alive for many years, far more powerful than divine exotic immortal spirit. After all, it was able to break free from the suppression of a carefree primordial immortal. Soon, his divine thought captured a heavenly demon, hidden within the walls of a dilapidated temple within Qingtian Peak, extremely concealed and probably difficult to detect even for the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Practice diligently. Once you are strong enough, I will give this treasure for you to use, Guwen said to an Exen beside him, who was full of curiosity, smiling gently. Chapter 330. Awakening really? When an Exen heard Guwen's words, she was instantly excited, and the eyes of the blood prison great saint also turned fiery. Indeed, the master would not be stingy with the treasures of the immortal path. After returning to the mountaintop, Guwen had an Exen start cultivating while he went back to the house alone. Sitting on his bed, Guwen's gaze fell on Qingtian Peak. He first used his divine thought to erase any marks and restrictions within Qingtian Peak that made him wary. The immortal spirit of Qingtian Peak was very submissive and did not resist Guwen. Instead, it was quite jubilant. After taking safety precautions, Guwen began to make Qingtian Peak recognize him as its master. With the compliance of the Qingtian immortal spirit, it took Guwen less than an hour to refine the restrictions of Qingtian Peak and take control of the soul of the Qingtian immortal spirit, making it completely serve him. With the Qingtian immortal spirit in hand, this would be the combat power of a carefree primordial immortal. Moreover, Guwen felt that the power contained in Qingtian Peak was greater than the 7 stars mirror, the immortal king crown, and the divine exotic city. The immortal king crown and divine exotic city had been damaged and needed a long time to recover. The 7 stars mirror hadn't suffered much damage but was slightly weaker than Qingtian Peak. However, the difference was limited. After all this, the corners of Guwen's mouth curved upward. Next, it was like capturing a turtle in a jar. Forget it, let me leave him hanging for a while. After all, he can't escape or pass any messages outside. He pretended not to know that a heavenly demon was hidden inside Qingtian Peak, and the Qingtian immortal spirit was completely unaware. During the process of making Qingtian Peak his own, Guwen peeked into the memory of the Qingtian immortal spirit. It spent most of its time either asleep or sealed by a strong force, unaware of the filth inside it. Although unaware of the filth inside, the Qingtian immortal spirit was influenced by it. It inexplicably felt something attracting it at Dingtian Peak, thus it crashed towards Dingtian Peak. If Guwen had not intervened, it planned to directly smash Dingtian Peak to force the alluring thing to reveal itself. From this perspective, the identity of the demon fetus below is not simple. Guwen thought silently. He pondered whether or not to move the demon fetus elsewhere, but where could he move it to? Moving it, if awakened prematurely, wouldn't that accelerate the catastrophe? No matter, let it stay here. As for whether another heavenly demon will come later, he didn't care. He would destroy any heavenly demon with lesser cultivation than his. As for those with higher cultivation than his, if they could infiltrate the great heavenly spirit land, wouldn't the holy court have been penetrated long ago? Guwen shrank Qingtian Peak into an accessory and hung it on his belt. His ultimate elusive body was evolved from the practice of the demon shadow divine skill. Its main use now was to block all causality deduction, which also protected Qingtian Peak when it was attached to his body, making it indeducible. It wasn't necessary to activate the ultimate elusive body to block causality deduction. After mastering it, he could block it permanently. In such a case, releasing some causality on the surface could easily misguide others' deductions. The ultimate elusive body also had combat capabilities, allowing his physical soul to become elusive, dodging spells and divine skills, providing infinite uses in battle. Guwen stood up, stretched lazily, and loosened his body. Heavenly demons, the holy court. It's really hard to achieve true peace in this world. Guwen reflected internally, yet he faced no pressure. There's still much time ahead, take it slow. The conflicts of the moment mean little, who laughs last is what truly matters. As the seasons changed, a new year arrived. Just after the new year, Guwen was in the forest instructing an Xian on qi absorption cultivation. The stepping path of Age's step was too profound and enigmatic. Even with Guwen's personal guidance, an Xian still found it difficult to master. The current goal for an Xian was to discover the patterns of the stepping path of Age's step. An Xian moved swiftly, appearing 5 steps away in an instant before stumbling and falling to the ground. She sat on the ground, feeling dizzy and shaky, her eyes closed and mouth slightly open, which made Guwen want to laugh. He didn't help an Xian regain her composure. This was a necessary path for her. She stayed in that spot for nearly half an hour before fully regaining her senses. Turning to Guwen, she gave a bitter smile and said, "Master, this technique is incredibly profound. Do I really need to learn it?" Guwen, holding the 7 stars mirror like a fan, chuckled and said, "You must learn it. Just absorbing qi is not enough, and besides, cultivating divine skills will enhance your understanding too." An Xian made a mournful face but didn't give up. Instead, she stood up again, ready to continue practicing the stepping path of Age's step. The thought of the previous dizzy sensation made an Xian want to vomit. She raised her hands, patted her face, and tried not to think about the discomfort. At that moment, she turned her head and saw a golden glow in the sky outside the forest, rapidly stretching out and magnificent like the sunset. Guwen also looked up, his expression calm. Is it finally coming? Meanwhile, overseas on an island, Yang Jian and Heaven Sect stood side by side. Yang Jian gazed at his right hand, having just crushed a golden jade stone given by Heaven Sect, with his palm covered by a golden sphere and tiny golden stars scattering into the air. He appeared expressionless, yet he was extremely nervous inside. Merging with his past memories, was he still himself? Heaven Sect looked at him and comfortingly said, "Don't worry, this process won't be painful. I've already set up formations and no one will disturb you." Yang Jian looked up at the sky where the golden glow covered the sky. So beautiful. But this phenomenon. Yang Jian hesitated. Heaven Sect stroked his beard and said, "Don't worry, this phenomenon covers a vast area, and you don't have to worry." Yang Jian took a deep breath and refocused on his palm. Then, the golden stars rising from his palm began to fly toward his face, eventually entering his eyes. The wind picked up on the island as the world's spiritual energy surged towards Yang Jian. The golden light in his palm brightened, illuminating his face while his eyes flickered with different scenes. Seeing this, Heaven Sect smiled, slowly backing away to give Yang Jian space. Elsewhere, inside Supreme Sect, Guwen could see the heaven and earth rules enveloping Yang Jian, with yin-yang rules being the most intense. He couldn't understand the process, but he felt that Yang Jian wouldn't encounter any mishap. There was no other soul in that golden jade stone, so there was no risk of soul snatching. "Master, why has the sky changed color?" An Xian curiously asked. "Your fellow disciple is awakening his past memories," Guwen said nonchalantly as he gazed at the sky. Past memories? An Xian immediately became interested, and Guwen did not hide the truth, revealing Yang Jian's causality. Hearing that Yang Jian was the reincarnation of a holy king from the holy court, an Xian was even more shocked. "No wonder he's so powerful, Master. Could my fellow senior brother also be the reincarnation of a great power?" An Xian asked, staring intently at Guwen, her eyes apprehensive. "Probably not." Guwen's answer left an Xian feeling disappointed. If Anhao was a reincarnation of a great figure, that would mean she was not too bad. The problem was her comparison to Anhao. However, everyone might have a past life. Once you reach a certain realm, you will understand, Guan said and then looked away. He stood up and said, "Let's stop here for today." Upon hearing this, Anzin's face revealed a relieved smile. She followed Gu An's steps. "Master, if Yang Jian awakens his past memories, does that mean he will become the Holy King again? Is the Holy King powerful? What he becomes is up to him to decide. As for the power of a Holy King, let me tell you something. The Great Cold Demon sect previously served a Holy King. A Holy King could command a sect like the Great Cold Demon sect? Don't be overly dramatic. Thinking about it now, having such a powerful Holy King as my junior brother feels like a dream. I'm telling you this, not for you to marvel, but for you to clearly know your own goals. Master, I will practice diligently. With your teachings, what is a Holy King? The master and disciple continued chatting as they returned to the valley. Guan used the power of causality to alter their conversation, so he wasn't worried about exposure. After reaching the divine thought true immortal realm, Guan studied causality and destiny the most and controlled his own power of causality more and more skillfully. Meanwhile, every being in the Broken Sea domain looked up at the heavenly phenomenon. Guan even saw some powerful figures flying out from the Holy Land where the Holy Court was located, rushing towards the Broken Sea domain. Fortunately, Yang Jian was not awakening in the Taizong continent, otherwise the continent would face trouble again. The golden phenomenon lasted a day and a night, and by noon the next day, Shenzhen came to visit Guan. After closing the door, she started setting up a formation and busied herself for a while before coming to sit at the table. "Yo, still reading Green Hero Travel? Why not read my Supreme Secret Records?" Shenzhen teased. Guan replied, "Supreme Secret Records is too short." The implication was, when will you write something new? Shenzhen seemed not to understand. She took out a scroll from her storage bag and spread it out on the table. She had actually drawn the golden phenomenon from yesterday. The golden sky enveloped the land and mountains, showcasing the majestic atmosphere of the immense landscape. Guan noticed that as the scroll was unrolled, the heaven and earth rules gradually drew near. Once again, she used her painting to move the heaven and earth rules. Yesterday's phenomenon was no simple matter. It gave me an indescribable feeling. Shenzhen began to share her thoughts on her painting process. However, Guan caught a special power emerging from the depths of the heaven and earth rules. This power somewhat resembled the inheritance left by Heaven sect. Could it be that Yang Jian's past life was also related to the heavenly Tao represented by Heaven sect? Besides this power, Guan was interested in the reincarnation rules. This painting also attracted the reincarnation rules. Heaven and earth rules are omnipresent, only elusive to mortal spirits. In the eyes of a divine thought true immortal, heaven and earth comprise many layers. Beneath the heaven and earth rules lies even deeper forces of order. After Shenzhen introduced her painting process, she proudly asked, "What do you think? It seems you've sensed my painting intent. Want you comment?" Guan focused on the scroll and replied, "It indeed makes one easily lose their mind. You are very impressive." "That's right." Shenzhen raised her jaw, extremely proud. Just as Guan was about to speak, the scroll suddenly burst into flames, startling Shenzhen as she tried to extinguish it. "Don't approach. This fire is not right," Guan said sternly, stopping Shenzhen from acting rashly. Chapter 331. The great emperor from the silent destruction domain. Guan's gaze remained fixed on the burning scroll on the table while his divine sense locked onto outer heaven. Above the great heavenly spirit land hung 7 suns. From within one of those suns, the eyes of a mysterious colossal creature opened and stared directly at Guan's attic. It was this creature that caused the scroll to burn. Guan was not perturbed. The beings in those 7 days all possessed the cultivation level of the carefree primordial immortal, posing no threat to him, but he could feel that they bore great karmic debts and were backed by a mighty presence. Thinking about it, it was normal. After all, if the Holy Court could contain them, either their patron was the Holy Court or their patron was feared by the Holy Court. Regardless of the situation, Guwen did not want to stir trouble unnecessarily. Soon, the scroll on the table turned to ash, yet it miraculously did not affect the table's surface. Xianxia asked, somewhat shaken, "What was that just now?" Even with her divinity transformation realm cultivation level, she could not understand how the flames appeared and vanished. At this moment, she felt as if she had incurred the wrath of the heavens. Guwen took a deep breath and said, "I'm not sure, it seems like you shouldn't have painted yesterday's vision." Xianxia frowned and asked, "Only yesterday?" "It seems so, since you've painted other pictures before without such events occurring," Guwen replied. Thinking about it, the karmic debt hidden by Yang Jian seemed to be related to those 7 days. Xianxia took a deep breath and said, "Forget it, my cultivation is too weak, and I certainly cannot provoke them." With her words, Guwen saw the mysterious creature within the sun close its eyes. Xianxia had managed to escape this ordeal. It was merely a warning, indicating that the mysterious beings of the 7 days were not so murderous or domineering. Guwen sat back down and teased, "You're quite something, managing to draw a picture that provokes the wrath of the heavens." Xianxia did not take pride in that but earnestly said, "Indeed, I felt I was capturing an obscure and mysterious state while painting, and each time after I finished painting, it became easier for me to cultivate. Many confusions in cultivation would also become clearer." "It seems you're also about to undergo a profound transformation," Guwen said enviously. Only then did Xianxia smile, snorting, "Be nicer to me from now on, perhaps I'll become an immortal someday." "All right, Immortal Xin." "Good boy." "How shameless." Daring to offend a future immortal?" The two began to bicker, and the fear in Xianxia's heart was swept away. She felt that she needed to be more cautious about her future paintings. She had to discern clearly what should be painted and what should not. An hour later, Xianxia left. Guwen then lay back in his chair and watched Yang Jian and Heaven Sect. After awakening his past life memories, Yang Jian's cultivation had not experienced substantial transformation, but his whole demeanor indeed had changed. Guwen watched for a while and, confirming that Yang Jian was unharmed, withdrew his gaze. In the days that followed, Yang Jian and Heaven Sect stayed on that island, protected by Heaven Sect's formation. Many great cultivators passed by, unable to detect their existence. Until the summer came. Guwen rode the Blood Prison Great Saint down from the transmission array platform, feeling cheerful. Just as he was about to leave, Nine-Finger Divine Lord approached him curiously and asked, "Guwen, your disciple in Xian has changed significantly lately. What did you teach her?" Because Guwen had previously mentored Yang Jian, he believed Enzin's changes were related to Guwen, which made him more curious about the being behind Guwen. The most mysterious and powerful entity in the Supreme Sect was Sword Venerable Fudao. Nine-Finger Divine Lord had always felt that Guwen was connected to Sword Venerable Fudao. Perhaps Guwen's achievement in Go was related to Sword Venerable Fudao. As for the possibility that Guwen was Sword Venerable Fudao, after learning Guwen's age, he ceased to think in that direction. Unique Daoist sorcery, indescribable and unutterable, unless you become my disciple. Guwen looked down at Nine-Finger Divine Lord and said with a proud smile, causing Nine-Finger Divine Lord to roll his eyes, "You know my cultivation level is quite high, and yet you dare take me as a disciple?" Nine-Finger Divine Lord said with irritation. Guwen shrugged and replied, "The accomplished can be teachers. You surely have aspects where you lag behind me. Could it be that in your life you only pursue cultivation levels? Could it be that in this world only energy absorption can lead to the Tao?" Upon hearing this, Nine-Finger Divine Lord did not counter but fell into thought. Guwen patted the head of the Blood Prison Great Saint, urging him to move forward. The Blood Prison Great Saint had been cultivating the primordial reincarnation skill for years. Though his cultivation level was still sealed, he was hopeful about the future. 1,000 years from now, he would surely become an immortal. Nine-Finger Divine Lord turned his head and asked, "Can one also achieve the Tao through playing Go?" Who can say for sure? No matter what you do, as long as you put your heart into it, everything is possible, Guwen replied casually. Nine-Finger Divine Lord had clearly been seriously injured. His cultivation level was certainly not just that of a wandering immortal, but Guwen was not interested in his past. Watching Guwen's retreating figure, Nine-Finger Divine Lord sensed a transcendental aura from this young man. He seemed to have seen through the mundane secular world, appearing more like an immortal than actual immortals. Thus, it seemed that Sword Venerable Fudao remained in the Supreme Sect perhaps for this young man. This speculation made Nine-Finger Divine Lord increasingly convinced. It appeared staying in the Supreme Sect was the right choice. Nine-Finger Divine Lord looked toward Divine Heart Sun, who was reading under a tree. Previously, he thought Divine Heart Sun was possessed, but now upon seeing him again, he suddenly felt that Divine Heart Sun might also achieve the Tao. Then looking at the third Medicine Valley, he had a strong feeling. In the years to come, this Medicine Valley would spawn many beings who would stir the winds and clouds of the world. This intrigued him, and anticipation bubbled up in his heart. He would wait and see what kind of person Sword Venerable Fudao's chosen land could nurture. Elsewhere, Guwen went upstairs. He closed the door of his room, sat down in the chair, and took the miniature Qingtian peak that had become a piece of ornament at his waist, placing it on the table. Today, he felt a slight anomaly within Qingtian peak, related to that mysterious heavenly demon. That fellow couldn't restrain himself anymore. Guwen's divine sense probed into Qingtian Peak, which also concealed a realm within it. Although not as extensive as the realms within Divine Exotic City, this realm was broader than the Taizong continent. At that moment, inside a dilapidated temple, Guwen's divine sense avatar walked in. Sunlight pierced through the worn temple walls, elongating Guwen's shadow. Guwen approached a wall crowded with ancient paintings, pitted and aged, their history unknown. Come out, let's talk, give me a reason and I want to erase you. Guwen stated emotionlessly, his gaze fixed on the wall. As the words fell, wisps of demonic chi seeped from the surface of the dilapidated wall. Even in broad daylight, they appeared haunting and horrifying. Shortly after, a gaunt, black-clad old man crawled out from the demonic chi as if transcending time. His eyes brimming with bloodshot veins, he locked his gaze on Guwen the moment he emerged. Upon standing up, he asked in a deep voice, "Who exactly are you and what do you want?" Guwen answered, "You impact Qinggun Peak toward my mountain, you ask me what I want?" Upon hearing this, the old man's expression grew even grimmer, and he fell silent, his eyes flickering. "Are you here because of the demon fetus?" Guwen asked. Upon hearing this, the old man's face changed drastically, and his body began to tremble. He stared intently at Guwen and asked, "What have you done to him?" "I haven't touched him yet, but the trouble he has caused me seems to be growing." Guwen's tone remained indifferent, making it hard for the old man to gauge his thoughts. The old man hesitated before speaking. "You and us bear no enmity?" Guwen remained silent. Emboldened, the old man continued, "If you do not wish to be entangled in this great karma, it would be wise to leave this place. The demon fetus is a reincarnation of the great emperor from the silent destruction domain, gestated for tens of thousands of years and immovable, with more heavenly demons yet to descend." Guwen pondered internally but asked aloud, "So, you have already established contacts with some of the upper echelons of the Holy Court?" The old man answered, "If you truly don't wish to involve yourself in this karma, it's best not to inquire further. Inquiring more will inevitably alert certain beings." When Guwen put forward this question, it indicated to the old man that Guwen was not connected to the Holy Court, so he did not wish to make an enemy of Guwen. Given Guwen's methods in suppressing Qingtian Peak, he knew he was no match. "What is the purpose of your infiltration into the great heavenly spirit land? It wouldn't be to target the beings of this realm, would it? If so, where could I possibly flee to?" Guwen asked slowly. He was also making a decision. Whether to leave Mortal World Peak. Logically, if he wanted to avoid trouble, he should leave. The universe is vast. There are always places to hide. Besides, our plans cannot commence in the short term. the old man replied, sensing Gu En's intention to withdraw. He felt more confident. What was the cultivation level of the demon fetus in his previous life? Gu En inquired. The great emperor in his previous life was an entity of the immortal 8th layer heaven. It won't be difficult for him to reach the immortal 7th layer heaven in this life, the old man replied. Even though the old man was a carefree primordial immortal, to him, reaching the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm was challenging, not to mention higher realms. The immortal 7th layer heaven was already in existence that could traverse the universe in his mind, unless those eternal beings took action. Immortal 8th layer heaven. Gu En's expression turned ugly, but he was slightly relieved internally. The 7th layer was the Tao void mysterious immortal, and the 8th layer was the divine thought true immortal realm where he belonged. He was at the 9th level of divine thought true immortal realm. The old man, thinking Gu En had been frightened, continued, "As long as you leave this place, even if I find the demon fetus, it will take thousands of years to fully form him. You have plenty of time to find a new place for cultivation." Thousands of years? The pressure in Gu En's heart sharply decreased. If it took the old man thousands of years with his help, wouldn't it take tens of thousands of years without him? Gu En spoke, "Allow me a few more years to think. I should have that much time, right?" The old man did not develop hostility toward him, so he wanted to give the old man a chance. Upon hearing this, the old man's expression relaxed considerably, and he raised his hand in salute, saying, "Of course, I hope you can see reason and not delay your future prospects." He could not escape Qingtian Peak, nor could he send out a message. He could only try to maintain good relations with Gu En by blending softness with firmness. Chapter 332 Earth Element Spirit. Gu En set down the Qingtian Peak and, after his conversation with the man in black came to an end, his heart grew calm. In situations where the threat was not that great, he naturally wouldn't run away. He would only preserve himself when utterly powerless. Moreover, there was a time difference between higher and lower realms. 10 or 100 years might be lengthy for beings of lower realms, but for immortal path life, it was but a fleeting moment. Anyway, the man in black couldn't run away. Gu En decided to keep him for the time being to see what sort of realization he would come to. Gu En raised his hand and beckoned, attracting a piece of paper from across the space. He was ready to write another secret book. The sun set and the moon rose. Time turned its pages day by day. Winter's snow inevitably arrived. Before the world fell into a blanket of white, Gu En went to the wooden fence to enjoy the snow's cape. He hadn't stood there long before Ji Xiaoyu walked over, standing side by side with him. Ji Xiaoyu didn't look up at the sky but fixed her gaze on a distant Exen. An Exen was carrying a plump white spirit rat, constantly moving her little mouth, clearly saying something to the white spirit rat. "She's progressing so fast," Ji Xiaoyu whispered. Could she not? Whenever Gu En had time, he would assist an Exen in entering the way. Although her lifespan didn't increase rapidly, it made her cultivation twice as effective with half the effort. He genuinely intended to cultivate an Exen to surpass an Hao and Yang Jian. "It's all right. Her cultivation level is growing very slowly," Gu En spoke. Due to the primordial reincarnation skill, Enzin's cultivation level was always suppressed. Even if she were to release her cultivation level in the future, it would be concealed, with her apparent cultivation level controlled at the Foundation establishment realm. It seemed that Gu En would have to tell an Exine to restrain herself a bit more, since more and more people had started to notice the changes in her. "The Ji family recently discovered an undersea secret realm and invited me to go. I could take your disciple along, what do you think?" Ji Xiaoyu asked. Upon hearing this, Gu En hurriedly shook his head. "An Exin is timid, there's no need to take her. I'll be there, she won't encounter any mishaps. It's unnecessary. It's not something I wish to see, to burden you." "Is that so?" "Yes. I just feel that her aptitude is improving. Staying in Medicine Valley might bury her talent." "I don't like to hear that. Would I delay her?" Gu En glared at Ji Xiaoyu. He had intentionally said this to make Ji Xiaoyu believe that the high-level cultivator guiding an Exen was someone else. Ji Xiaoyu's mouth lifted into a smile. All right then, I want to invite her. I want to see what you can make of her. Guwen smiled. Then when are you leaving? And for how long? This was not the first time Ji Xiaoyu had set out, but Guwen felt that the undersea secret realm would again cause trouble. Perhaps this was what it meant to be a great fortune of energy movement. Continuous trials and tribulations, always narrowly escaping disaster and turning peril into safety. I leave tomorrow morning. The competition for sea resources among the noble families is quite fierce. Ji Xiaoyu started talking about the situation at sea. Despite the vastness of the ocean and the richness of its resources, the coveted areas had long been divided by the major powers, making it difficult to gain a foothold at sea. The Ji family, wanting to occupy a region of their own and lay down roots for development, eyed the secret realm. That oceanic secret realm was the source of abundant spiritual energy nearby. Immortal path beings didn't care about such a realm, but those in the mystic heart realm would fight tooth and nail over it. She shifted the conversation from the Ji family to other significant happenings at sea as Guwen listened with keen interest. During their conversation, a powerful divine sense swept across the Taizong continent. Guwen was used to this. The other party was probably searching for Yang Jian. Yang Jian, having awakened memories from past lives, shocked many cultivators of the Holy Court who were still searching for him. Yang Jian didn't run around but focused on cultivating on that island. At sea, only those in the immortal path realm have the power to protect themselves. Even if one achieves nirvana, walking the seas still requires great caution, Ji Xiaoyu remarked, her cultivation having grown higher and allowing her to perceive more. The experiences from her past lives' dreams only deepened her reverence. Guwen smiled. With your talent, you'll achieve nirvana sooner or later. Let alone at sea, right now there was a divine sense of a heaven and earth flying immortals sweeping the continent. Most beings were completely unaware of this. What about you? Ji Xiaoyu turned to look at Guwen, asking with a calm tone. Nirvana? I'm afraid I won't have the chance. Guwen shook his head and chuckled freely, devoid of any constraints. Ji Xiaoyu offered no consolation, knowing that nirvana was a threshold for mortal spirits to break through fate, a challenge that no one else could assist with. She followed Guwen as they both looked up at the snow falling from the sky. The snowflakes began to fall more heavily. On the sprawling seas, Leah sat on the back of a black eagle that sped along, flapping its wings. The sea breeze tousled Li Ya's long hair, but his eyes remained fixed on the horizon, unblinking. The divine exotic immortal spirit perched on Li Ya's shoulder, head tilted, asked, "Have you really thought this through? Without using my power, it will be difficult for you to cross the waters ahead. I can sense a dense demon energy there, hiding a great demon of the immortal path." Li Ya's expression was stoic as he answered softly, "Save me when I'm close to death." Ever since his last visit to the divine exotic realm and learning about the origins of divine exotic city, Li Ya's pride had shattered. He didn't blame the primordial ancestor but was rather more grateful. However, he was filled with resentment towards himself. "Leah, oh Leah, what have you been raging about all these years?" All this time, he had always needed the primordial ancestor, needed others' help. Without divine exotic city, what was he? Upon returning to the Star Sea congregations, Leah secluded himself for cultivation and pondered over this question. This seclusion lasted for many years. He had now made up his mind. What he needed to do was improve his physical constitution and insight. If and how could cultivate the ancient treasure body, why couldn't he? So, he embarked on the journey to pursue the treasure body. He learned from an elder that a treasure body had once fallen in a certain sea region, possibly leaving behind an opportunity related to the treasure body. "Leah, actually, you're still young, and you're already quite formidable," the divine exotic immortal spirit consoled, scratching its head. Having spent many years with Leah, it had grown fond of him and didn't want him to take extreme measures. "Don't worry, I will measure my abilities and refrain from making the primordial ancestor take action again," Leah said calmly, his eyes resolute. Following his gaze, dark clouds appeared at the far end of the sea horizon, small but clearly an ominous sign. Meanwhile, on the path of Dingtian Peak on Mortal World Peak, Guan rode the Blood Prison Great Saint while an Exen walked in front of the Blood Prison Great Saint, occasionally looking back and sharing a laugh. The sea breeze blew, stirring Guan's hair by the temples. He withdrew his gaze from spying on Li Ya and looked towards an Exen. How many of the medicinal herbs did you memorize today? It had been 8 years since Ji Xiaoyu left for the undersea secret realm. She had not returned for 8 years, but as Guan saw she wasn't in mortal peril, he allowed her to face the ordeal alone. During these 8 years, Guan taught an Xian no other spells or divine skills. Aside from Qi absorption cultivation, she only practiced the stepping path of ages step daily. Wearing a mask, an Exen turned back and said, "Master, rest assured, I remember them all." "Good, go back and write them into a book, so other disciples can increase their knowledge in the future." Guan nodded. An Exen was about to reply when 2 figures descended from the sky and landed on the stone steps ahead. Upon seeing these 2 people, an Exen immediately tensed up. They were Daoist Lord Yongyan and Fu Shenxiu from the main peak. An Exen thought they were there to demand the Immortal Path's supreme treasure. Daoist Lord Yongyan raised his hand in salute, saying, "May I inquire if Daoist friend has time? My disciple and I have a matter to request." Upon hearing this, Guan responded, "Speak directly, what's the matter?" Daoist Lord Yongyan glanced at Fu Shenxiu and said, "Since Qingtian Peak has no affinity with my disciple, I have found another great opportunity for him, located within the Sea Demon Thunder domain. It is a treasure left by an ancient great power named Earth Element Spirit. Every 100,000 years it congeals one spirit, and its appearance is not fixed, but it can be confirmed to only appear within the Sea Demon Thunder domain. Earth Element Spirit." It was the first time Guan had heard of this, and he also became interested. According to Daoist Lord Yongyan, that ancient great power was unfathomable in his cultivation. Before passing away, he used some great divine power to refine his Immortal Path's supreme treasure, submerging it into the Sea Demon Thunder domain, merging it with the ocean, rendering it unfindable. It was only when someone accidentally acquired the Earth Element Spirit that the veil of this opportunity was lifted. The Earth Element Spirit could strengthen the soul of a cultivator, and even demons were eager to obtain it. Later on, the Holy Court took charge of the Sea Demon Thunder domain, and a holy god decreed that the Thunder domain was land without an owner. No sect was allowed to occupy it, and regarding the Earth Element Spirit, it all relied on one's power. Mortal World Peak had also sought the Earth Element Spirit. Either fate was there but the affinity was not, or they found the Earth Element Spirit but lacked the power to fight for it. Hearing about the anomaly in the Sea Demon Thunder domain, which might signal the birth of an Earth Element Spirit, Daoist Lord Yongyan thought of Guan. "Daoist friend Meng, if you could take action, I would be deeply grateful," Daoist Lord Yongyan sincerely said, convinced that Guan had surpassed the carefree immortal realm. Such a great cultivator aiding them would surely clinch the Earth Element Spirit without difficulty. Guan feigned hesitation. "Will this offend other sects?" Daoist Lord Yongyan replied, "The worthy receive treasures, don't they? I've heard that Daoist friend enjoys cultivating medicinal herbs, so I'm willing to transplant a batch of Immortal Path medicinal herbs to Dingtian Peak from the main peak. How about that?" Daoist friend is too kind. I've already said that if Mortal World Peak encounters an issue, it'll take action. When do we set out? Guan spoke earnestly, bringing a smile to Daoist Lord Yongyan's face. Fu Shenxia's mouth twitched, but he said nothing. Having had Qingtian Peak taken by Guan, it was impossible for him not to feel resentment, yet now he could only maintain courtesy. "How about in 3 days?" Daoist Lord Yongyan asked. "No problem, we'll set out after 3 days then," Guan nodded. The flight speed of the Red Mansion surged. Fairy Yongxin suppressed the shock in her heart and asked, "Daoist friend, have you been to the Sea Demon domain?" "No, but I have captured it with divine sense before. This Sea Demon domain is not simple. You only know the surface, but inside lies a divine immortal of wondrous dharma who will be our greatest obstruction, Guan replied with a shake of his head, smiling. As he spoke, he picked up the teacup next to him and began to sip tea. Divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Fairy Yongxin couldn't maintain her composure, and her eyebrows involuntarily furrowed. Fu Shenxiu was inwardly shocked. How profound must this person's Dao level be to mention the divine immortal of wondrous dharma so casually? An Xian was filled with curiosity. What realm was the divine immortal of wondrous dharma? A realm above the wandering immortal? Without mentioning the heaven and earth flying immortal, Fairy Yongxin and Fu Shenxiu led her to mistakenly think the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm lay immediately after the wandering immortal. He fears those above the 5th level of the divine immortal of wondrous dharma realm. Fairy Yongxin thought to herself and gazed at Guan with a mix of reverence and anticipation. In the following conversation, Fairy Yongxin dared not address Guan merely as a Daoist friend but referred to him as a senior. Guan did not shy away from this title, graciously accepting it. This made an Xin proud, and she sat up straighter. Boom! The deafening thunder echoed above the ocean, with torrents of waves rising and crashing down. A black hawk skimmed through the tempest. Liya stood on the back of the hawk, his brows furrowed, murmuring, "I run into such a fierce demon aura just after entering, that old guy wouldn't have tricked me, would he?" On his shoulder, the divine exotic immortal spirit nodded frantically, saying, "I've had a bad feeling about him for a while now." He also calls himself the immortal seeking Daoist, which sounds like a bluff to me. Li Ya's brows relaxed and he whispered, "Since I'm already here, I can't leave empty-handed. If I don't find the cultivation technique for the treasure body, looking for a demon treasure to enhance chi blood isn't a bad idea either." He drew the treasure sword from his waist, a slender blade that reflected a cold light amidst the downpour. Boom! Suddenly, far out at sea, an explosion erupted, and a terrifying black shadow leapt from the water, immense and imposing as if Mount Tai itself had risen from the ocean floor and swiftly entered the clouds. The hawk beneath Liya immediately slowed down, not daring to approach rashly. Chapter 334. Is this it? A flash of red light zipped across the sea covered by storm clouds, fast as lightning. Gu and Xian, Fairy Yongxin, and Fu Shenxiu stood on the edge of the terrace, gazing over the spectacular vista of the sea demon thunder domain. Demon energy permeated the area, but it could not obscure the fearsome waves and countless lightning bolts weaving through heaven and sea like monstrous dragons and serpents, fearsomely twisting. Every so often, a giant demon beast as large as mountains would burst from the sea surface and roar unrestrained, reminiscent of the primeval chaos. The earth element spirit appears in a place engulfed by a unique radiance, making it quite easy to locate. However, the earth element spirit may attempt to escape. If it is not captured quickly, it will dive into the sea and vanish without a trace, only reappearing the next time, Fairy Yongxin spoke. Guan nodded slightly. He could feel a strong divine thought pervading this ocean, dissipating within the waters, unable to condense. It seemed that the ancient great cultivator Fairy Yongxin mentioned had at least the cultivation level of a divine soul true immortal. Divine soul true immortals could also perish. Who knew what calamity he had faced? While pondering, Gu's divine thought enveloped the sea demon thunder domain. The domain was immense, larger even than the entirety of the broken sea domain, teeming with countless demon creatures from every possible realm, ranging from the divine immortal of wondrous dharma down to those in the energy cultivation realm. There were many areas within the domain that his divine thought could not penetrate directly. They were guarded by powerful restrictions. Though Guan could forcefully break through with focused divine thought and succeed, it would inevitably destroy the restrictions and cause the internal minor heaven and earth to shatter. Guan's divine thought locked onto that divine immortal of wondrous dharma. This person was hidden within an island, surrounded by seas infested with demons each as large as the island itself, comparable to heaven and earth flying immortals. He just caught sight of a wandering immortal passing nearby, then watched as the Immortal was swallowed whole by a black giant whale, so fast that its primordial spirit couldn't even escape. It was a female cultivator, almost like a fairy. Such a pity, Guwen thought to himself while he responded to Fairy Yongxin. His divine thought quickly caught sight of a place glowing with an unusual light, and he directed Fairy Yongxin to fly in that direction. Standing beside Guwen, an Xian observed everything around with intense curiosity. Such dense demon energy, all condensed into black mist. An Xian quickly said, "Of course it's good, I mean." Seeing her struggle to explain, Guwen merely chuckled, "Let's head back first." Fairy Yongxin, smiling, felt this smooth operation was absolutely a surprise for her. Even if a carefree primordial immortal were to come to the Sea Demon Thunder domain, they would face life and death risks. As they reached outside the Sea Demon Thunder domain, Guwen suddenly grabbed Nzin's shoulder, causing her heart to skip a beat, and she soon found herself flying out of the building. Guwen, holding her shoulder with one hand and waving the other, sent the building into the distance. Fairy Yongxin and Fu Shenxiu were taken aback. Before they could react, Gu An's voice reached their ears. "You two go ahead." The building sped away, the two feeling the rules of heaven and earth retreating along the way, allowing unimpeded passage, an intricate technique beyond their comprehension. "It seems he has another purpose," Fairy Yongxin remarked. Fu Shenxiu added, "I think it's because his disciple still wants to see more." Fairy Yongxin looked at him in surprise, asking, "Is he so capricious? With his cultivation level, how can that be considered capricious?" Fu Shenxiu responded, his gaze on the earth element spirit in his hand, his perception of Guwen completely transformed. Meanwhile, Guwen and an Xian soared on clouds, his divine thought covering an Xin, entering a special state where only those who reached the state of Dao Void Mysterious Immortal could see them. "Master, you don't have to do this for me. It's so dangerous here," an Xin cautiously spoke, deeply touched. Guwen smiled, "Don't overthink it, it's not for you." "For whom then?" "You'll know soon." Hearing Guwen say this, an Xin grew even more curious about what lay ahead. The storm clouds churned quickly along the way, and an Xin felt no discomfort despite their swift pace. Before long, Guwen stopped. Lightning flashed through the clouds ahead, with demon mist swirling below. Suddenly, numerous evil ghosts burst out from the sea of clouds, startling an Xian, who instinctively moved closer to Guwen. Booming sounds continuously came from below, drawing Nzin's attention. Moved by Guwen's intent, they descended below the cloud sea, where an Xin was captivated by the massive battle occurring over the sea. A vast city phantom stood above the sea surface, from which endless divine souls and strange ghosts flew out, attacking the demons around Divine Exotic City. This was a chaotic war. Divine Exotic City? Is Martial Uncle Leah here? An Xian asked excitedly. Leah had participated in the Heaven Tier tournament, displaying Divine Exotic City's power, leaving a deep impression on an Xian. When she thought of the Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, Leah came to mind. "That's an incredible Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. Master, is your Qingtian peak this strong?" An Xian curiously asked. Guwen snorted. Divine Exotic City is a broken Immortal Path Supreme Treasure, merely a pseudo-Immortal Path Supreme Treasure. In terms of true power, it cannot compare to Qingtian Peak. Let me show you later. Chapter 335. Master's wife Leah stood atop the tower, long sword in hand, his expression grave. Divine Exotic Immortal Spirit stood on Leah's shoulder, full of vigor, continuously waving its arms. Ever since Leah had learned the truth, it had ceased its act. At first, Leah felt somewhat awkward, but now, his feelings were overtaken by worry. The battle had progressed to a point where Divine Exotic City could barely advance. The demons were too strong and even understood formation techniques, effectively halting the advance of Divine Exotic City, with more demons continually joining the battlefield. If things continued this way, divine exotic city might well be breached. What Liya worried about most was attracting even more terrifying demon creatures. He felt a desire to retreat, fearing that the troubles would only grow and force the primordial ancestor to intervene. Liya gritted his teeth, ready to call for a retreat, when suddenly the divine exotic immortal spirit on his shoulder started yowling loudly. "I am going to unleash my divine might." The divine exotic immortal spirit raised its right arm, its youthful voice filled with excitement. Liya was stunned. He immediately looked up, scanning the surroundings. The distant thunderclouds were heavily interconnected, with no end in sight. The more he saw, the faster his gaze moved, as if searching for something. Guan noticed Liya's actions and a smile appeared on his face. He was already aware of Liya's burden because the divine exotic immortal spirit had told him, but he hadn't said anything. Some things had to be overcome by oneself. Like Long Zhan, a powerful figure who never hesitated and was always decisive. Guan immediately took Qing Tian Peak from his waist. The peak, smaller than a palm, refracted the thunderlight, emitting an ancient aura, unsettling an Xin profoundly. Under Nzin's watch, Guan raised his hand and tossed Qing Tian Peak upward into the sea of clouds. The next second, a vast momentum descended, enveloping the entire ocean. Liya and divine exotic immortal spirit both felt something and looked up simultaneously. The previously excited divine exotic immortal spirit widened its eyes, a stunned expression on its face. Liya was similarly dumbstruck. The rolling sea of clouds dispersed, and a tremendously large mountain suddenly emerged. In comparison, everything else seemed minuscule. It was tens of thousands of feet from the sea surface. Even the trees on the mountain appeared gigantic, resembling divine soldiers exerting a daunting presence. In this moment, divine exotic city seemed like a mere pebble, demonstrating the grandeur of Qing Tian Peak. Guan led an Xin to the summit. An Xin looked up to see a brilliant starry sky and also witnessed 7 dazzling suns, all reflecting in her eyes. As soon as Qing Tian Peak appeared, it grabbed the attention of all the demons. The demons, upon seeing Qing Tian Peak, were equally scared. "What is that?" "It's a huge mountain. No, an immortal treasure." "Damn it, why is there another supreme treasure appearing?" "This aura, no good, it's dangerous." "Retreat! Hurry, retreat!" Panicked cries came from the demons as they scattered like monkeys when a tree falls, fleeing at tremendous speed. Qing Tian Peak remained suspended in the air without touching down. Guan turned to an Xin and chuckled. "It seems we can't show the full might of Qing Tian Peak." An Xin wasn't foolish and shook her head. "That's because, Master, you are merciful, otherwise, they wouldn't think of escaping." Guan just laughed and shook his head. In that moment he thought of Long Zhan and Xiao Xingtian, and thus decided to adhere to his principles. His target for elimination should at least be beings with whom he had grievances. This would prevent others from speculating other reasons. Moreover, his annual gain in lifespan had already reached 1.5 million years, and he had no reason to needlessly kill innocents and accumulate karma. After all, he could play it safe and slowly become stronger. Guan's greatest cruelty was against plants and trees, as all beings must eat. Which cultivator doesn't use medicinal herbs for alchemy? What he could do was choose the path that best suited his own growth. That's why, to Nzin's comment about mercy, Guan only smiled. He didn't consider himself merciful. His choices were also governed by a mindset of seeking benefits and avoiding harm. As the demons dispersed, the divine exotic immortal spirit heaved a sigh of relief. Liya, meanwhile, looked up at the majestic Qing Tian Peak, feeling a sense of relief at that moment. So that's how it is. Liya had always felt unworthy of owning divine exotic city, but now, seeing the grandeur of Qing Tian Peak, he realized the primordial ancestor possessed even stronger treasures. What was there to worry about? He didn't even know how high the primordial ancestor's Dao level was. Rather than being burdened, he would rather strive to become stronger and repay the primordial ancestor later. No matter how much he tried to think for the primordial ancestor's sake now, He couldn't possibly help the primordial ancestor, who was gambling on his future, not the present. As Qingtian Peak rose higher and rapidly shrank, it gave Liya a sensation of flying beyond the heavens. After Qingtian Peak disappeared, Liya didn't see the figure he hoped to see. He took a deep breath and said, "Let's go." The divine exotic immortal spirit turned its head and asked with surprise, "Where to?" "To a place where we can compete. Clearly, this is not suitable for us, otherwise the primordial ancestor wouldn't have used another supreme treasure to save us," Liya said calmly. The divine exotic immortal spirit scratched its head, found the reasoning sound, and nodded in agreement. Divine exotic city transformed into a rainbow of light and streaked back the way they had come. This scene caught Nzin's eye, and she asked with surprise, "Why are they leaving?" Guan didn't expect his intervention to actually persuade Liya to leave, which left him with mixed feelings. "Let them go. Well, make another round for an ancient hour before heading back," Guan said. Xian had no objections and began to inquire about Divine Exotic City and Liya. Guan told her everything he knew. After the voyage through the Thunder Sea Demon domain, Xian pursued her cultivation more diligently, becoming more reserved, just like before. Having seen a stronger world, a fighting spirit was ignited within her, and thereafter, she needed no urging from Guan. Whenever she had time, she would actively practice the stepping path of Age's step. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord and Xianxia had also covertly observed her step technique. Unfamiliar and slightly embarrassed to keep spying, after watching 2 or 3 times, they completely lost interest in paying attention to Xian. But in their hearts, both Guan and Xian had become different. Years passed by. 5 years went by in the blink of an eye. This year, Ji Xiaoyu returned. "How come you have another woman's aura on you?" Ji Xiaoyu stood at the table, frowning as she asked. Guan put down the book in his hands and replied, "I went to see my junior sister 2 days ago." Ji Xiaoyu pressed on, "Why has her aura changed?" Guan looked at her, surprised. She actually remembered Yi Lan's aura? "She has made a breakthrough in her cultivation recently, so her aura has changed," Guan casually responded. In fact, that was indeed the case. In his heart, Nzin's status could not surpass Yi Lan's, so whenever he visited Yi Lan, he would preach to her, and the elixirs he invested in her were more than those for Xian. Watching the junior sister's maximum lifespan increase little by little gave Guan a sense of achievement. He relished the feeling of contending with the heavens. "Is that so?" Ji Xiaoyu asked skeptically. Guan rolled his eyes at her, saying, "I am upstanding and straightforward. Why would I deceive you? Don't I often meet other women in front of you? Besides, why do you care about these matters? Don't harbor any improper thoughts about me. The karma associated with you is too great. I'm afraid reincarnation path emperor's enemies might capture me to threaten you." Ji Xiaoyu couldn't help but glare at Guan. Guan crossed his arms and said, "Honestly, other than Yi Lan, Shenzhen, and Lu Lingjun, whom you have seen, there is another woman who likes me. I'm still considering it, mainly because I'm raising 3 adorable female demons, so I don't have much need for romance." Ji Xiaoyu laughed, saying, "It wouldn't be those 3 monkey demons, would it?" More and more great cultivators from the Supreme Sect were appearing, and Tianya Valley could no longer be hidden, but LV Beiyin and Li Xiandao had reached an agreement, so Tianya Valley remained unscathed. Ji Xiaoyu had learned about the situation inside Tianya Valley through the Ji family. "How could it be?" Guan retorted with a glare. Ji Xiaoyu pulled out a chair to sit down and began to recount her experiences over the years. Guan listened intently. After talking for 2 ancient hours, Ji Xiaoyu finally left. After Ji Xiaoyu went downstairs, she saw Xian speaking with 5 female disciples. Thus, she waited on the spot. Once the 5 female disciples had left, she approached Xian. At this moment, the sun began to set. Xian turned around, saw Ji Xiaoyu approaching, and quickly stepped forward to greet her. In her heart, Ji Xiaoyu was one of the potential sect mothers, a very strong contender, capable of living under the sect leader's floor. She had to be treated with respect. "Your talent is commendable." If you need help, just let me know. My Ji family has some resources, and we can assist you, Ji Xiaoyu said, staring at an Xen. Upon hearing this, an Xen hurriedly thanked her, then added, "Thank you for the kind offer from the Ji family, but it's not necessary. After all, I have my master." Ji Xiaoyu interrupted her, "Don't mind his attitude. I'm helping you for his sake. The stronger you are, the better you can protect him." With that, she turned and walked away. Watching her retreating figure, an Xen felt moved. Ji Xiaoyu truly had a domineering aura. An Xen silently compared herself. Despite her rapid progress, she was not yet a match for Ji Xiaoyu. She decided to set Ji Xiaoyu as her target. Surpassing Ji Xiaoyu would enable her to chase after an Hao and Yang Jian. She refused to believe that Ji Xiaoyu's talent could surpass an Hao and Yang Jian. Inside the house, Guwen was reading a book, the corners of his mouth curling into a smile. The evening sunlight burst through the window, bathing him in a layer of rosy light, as if he were clad in a robe of twilight. The sun set, and the moon rose. The following morning, Guwen left the Supreme Sect alone, controlling his sword as he flew into the distance. Once he was no longer locked onto by divine sense, his figure vanished instantly. An hour later, Guwen arrived in front of the gate of Juhua Sect, surrounded by undulating mountains. From the cliff, each mountain boasted a sea of flowers, a magnificent sight. When he took out the sect leader-level token from the Supreme Sect, the disciples of Juhua Sect halted their hostility and even warmly escorted him inside. Hearing that Guwen was seeking the sect leader, the disciples dared not delay and immediately guided him, as the token Guwen showed was of sect leader level from the Supreme Sect. An hour later, Guwen was situated in a separate courtyard. He sensed that Jiang Qiong was in closed-door cultivation, with disciples guarding outside. Sure enough, not much later, the guiding disciple hurried back, asking him to wait a few days since the sect leader was in seclusion. Guwen wasn't in a hurry. With Jiang Qiong in seclusion, he'd discreetly help her with her path enlightenment and leave. Once she found out Guwen had been looking for her but hadn't waited, she'd definitely feel embarrassed. Just thinking about it, Guwen was a little excited. Chapter 336. Reincarnation to Earth. After the disciples of Juhua Sect left, Guwen sat inside the house and suddenly found himself feeling a bit bored. Do I need a round of reincarnation evolution? If he changed locations for the evolution this time, maybe he would have different luck. His lifespan had already surpassed 500 million years. In a few years, the outer world cave would experience another surge in lifespan. It might be fun to try. Mainly because lifespan samsara could enhance Guwen's comprehension of the Tao rules, especially the way of cause and effect. He wasn't doing it for fun but for cultivation. Let's start one round. After convincing himself, Guwen sat down and drank a cup of tea. While pouring another, he initiated lifespan samsara. The tense and thrilling reincarnation evolution began. You have expended 10 million years of your lifespan to initiate reincarnation evolution, beginning connection with Tao rules, searching for reincarnation realm. You have the following realm choices, choose any one of them. 1. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. 2. Divine Origin Great Heaven and Earth. 3. Primordial Great Heaven and Earth. Seeing these three options, Guwen was immediately attracted to the Primordial Great Heaven and Earth. His physique was the primordial ultimate body, and he had always suspected that primordial pointed to a certain realm or world. How could he not be curious upon seeing the word primordial? He chose it after all. He had already experienced the first two great heaven and earth. Guwen immediately made his choice. You have chosen to reincarnate into primordial great heaven and earth. Given that the Tao rules of this realm are too powerful, you temporarily cannot activate the ability to seize lifespan, nor can you activate phase-based functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. Good. It's yet another world comparable to divine origin great heaven and earth, which means there exist beings here who transcend the 9 heavens of immortal path. Guwen felt even more anticipatory in his heart. In your first year, you were born on planet Earth in Jiang City, Huaxia, and your parents named you Lu Han, Earth. Gu An's gaze underwent a subtle change. At 6 years old, you started first grade in elementary school. Because you were too naughty and injured a classmate, you were severely punished by your father. At 12, you entered the first year of junior high school, where you displayed extraordinary intelligence and ranked at the top of your class. At 15, you were admitted to Jiang City's top high school. There, through a classmate's introduction, you began reading online novels. Your son was discovered to have the rare heavenly spirit root and was taken as a disciple by a Mahayana realm elder. Your family stayed up all night, unable to sleep. Upon reaching this point, Gu An's face broke into a smile. He was on the verge of feeling despondent. He hadn't even had the chance to make choices and felt like Lu Han could die at any moment. Too bitter,